We represent in blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue. We represent in blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue. We represent in blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue. Good night, all. Good night, good night, good night, good night. You are watching the Marcia Week Show, and we are coming to you live from the beautiful island of Barbados. And let me tell you, when you see me with this flag, you know I'm all up in my feelings, y'all. I'm all up in my feelings for Barbados. And I know my Jamaican people are going to say, "Listen, man, you sell out. What happened? This is I live here 20 something years, and I've grown to love this country and what it stands for." So listen, tonight is a night of patriotism. Tonight is a night of love. And because we love this country, it is because we love this country why we're asking the questions. We asking, where is the money? Where is the money? We are sick of the corruption. It is because we love this country, because we love this country, we are going to fight for this country. Eh? Good night, good night. Ramim says good night, loyal, patriotic opposition. Can't wait to dig into this topic. Yes, we're ready to scrutinize and examine and ask this government and the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister. They need to answer. They need to answer. They need to answer. There's no opposition in Parliament, but we are the opposition out here, and we are going to respond to that Auditor General's report. They will get a response from us. They will, because we represent this. This is it here. This is it here. A lot of you, your neighbor's string, as they say, it cut here. Yeah? So good night. Good night to everybody who's joined. Ramin, good night. Tyrone was the first to join. Tyrone Green, good night. Nubian Queen, Heathcliff, and then we had Natasha C says good evening to all. YZs, good night. And good night to Merlene O'Neill. Yeah, I like Natasha C's comment says, I'm like you guys, can't wait for this topic to pop. I can't even afford to misplace $1.50. You're right. I don't know all these millions. The Auditor General is saying missing. Can't account for it. People. No, 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 no. This one isn't going like this. There's Carol Barker, Wayne Austin, Zashe Yearwood, the opposition, they're joining, they're coming together, the army coming together. Yes, yes, yes. Mark Clark, Sharon O. Yes, good night, Mark Clark. Good evening, business and finance. That's what we're dealing with tonight. Good night. Good night, Romeo. Yes, you are here, and we are here. We are here. We are here. We have questions to ask, and we've got to listen. We got to understand what is going on in Barbados. Well, Barbados, I haven't seen the general in as yet, but I know he's coming in. Truth montage, listening from London, UK. Yes, yes, yes. We gathering around because of this. Because of this. Yes, Zashe Yearwood. Yes, yes, yes. Zashe Yearwood start already. Yes, 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 yes. You are so right. The Auditor General is more independent than the Prime Minister. All these questions that are being asked of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is a Minister of Finance. So it is a Minister of Finance that all these questions are being asked of. Okay? Yes, yes, yes. Wayne Hoyt, Sonia Ashby. Hey. Yes, like and share. Now, I am seeing only what? 3 likes? Only 3 likes on here, and then there's an angry face. Who could be angry about a show like this when the opposition is taking its place? Who could be angry about a show like this when patriotism is on display? Who could be angry about a show like this when we're saying, no way, we're not going to let this country go to the dogs? We're not going to let sit by and watch people destroy this country. Huh? Like it. Please like the YouTube page. Please like the show and like the Facebook and share. Like and share. Those of you who have not not done so as yet, do that. Good night, Tracy Barrow. Yes. Yes, account for the people's money. The people's money, you mean our money? Our money, that's what we're defending tonight. This, we need to make a decision that this Auditor General's report is not going to go like the one that they had before, right? About 4 seasons. That is not going to go like that one that they had before. No, this is a different time. And I want to, as you come on and you're sharing, we're only up to 126 persons on, 127, and I see the general in there, and I see Kimar Stewart. They're setting up to come on, and I am excited because people were logged on from 6:30. 6:30, so they can't wait. This opposition not playing. This opposition not playing, man. This is a serious, serious, serious opposition here, you know. Yes? Listen, serious opposition here. Tonight, it is because we are patriotic to our country. We listen, we're being to Barbados like Combamerians are to Combamere. We're being patriotic to our country in asking our officials, elected officials, the questions that we need to ask them. Patriotism is that feeling of love, devotion, and that sense of attachment to one's country. This attachment can be a combination of different feelings for things, such as the language, the Bajan language of one's homeland, its ethnic, cultural, political, or historical aspects. Yes, that is patriotism, right? Which is closely related to nationalism. Yes? And that's what we are tonight. And don't let anybody call you any troublemaker. You're never a troublemaker when you're standing up on behalf of your country. Never a troublemaker. Never a troublemaker. Yes? Yes? This is about this rock tonight, about Barbados. And we're not going to allow anybody to tell us anything otherwise. All right, so we share up. We're all ready to go. We're ready to go. We're ready to go. We're ready to go. I think the general is almost there. He's almost ready. Ah, yes, 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 guys. Yes, guys. Share up, share up, share up. This is about Barbados. What do you love about Barbados? What do you love about this country? Yeah, what is it that you love about this country? Somebody say ready, they're ready. They're ready. Listen, and while we wait, just give our guests a little time to settle. I want to say to you tonight, with the information that you are going to receive tonight and that you have been receiving, we must be good students and good stewards of what we have received. We are the opposition, guys. This is the opposition. This is it. This is it. When the Auditor General gives that report, there's no opposition to speak about it in the Parliament. It's us. It's the people of Barbados, not just the people on the show, the people on this of Barbados. And so I'm saying to you guys, when you get this information, engage your MP. Write your MP. Call your MP. Email your MP. You might say that it's not won't do any good. It put pressure on them, right? Share this program for the educational value of it. Share this program, right? Right? You're going to call into the radio stations with the information you've received. Listen, this is not pure. We're not pure opposition in Jamaica, as they would say. Huh? We're not pure opposition. We're not opposition where we sit down. We're not in collusion with the government. This is not that kind of opposition. We're looking out for the best interests of this rock, Barbados, right? Write letters to the newspaper, y'all. Stage protests and marches, and if you can't stage it, if you hear a protest or a march happening, find yourself down there. Make sure you get to the next march. Is going to be on the 30th. Find yourself down there, opposition. Come on, make yourself known. Hey, Louis Camalos, I see you. Monica Ince, I see you. Yes. Use your social media. I'm going to say that 3 times. Use your social media. Use your social media. Write about it on Facebook. Use it. Use it. That's how these got into power, using social media. If every one of us become vigilant and disciplined with our social media, use it for good. Use it for this. Use it for Barbados. Use it for your country. Use your social media, patriots. Use it. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, WhatsApp. Create WhatsApp voice notes. You might never have done it before. Create it. Use the information that you're getting. Use it. Don't sit on it. It's too important. This, we will not stand by and allow them to mash up this country. They're not going to mash it up. They're not going to mash it up, Barbados. Yeah. So use your social media. Write your letters. Speak up. Speak up. I think our guests are ready. I am seeing. Oh my goodness. I'm seeing Mr. Stewart. Mr. Franklin. Good evening. Good evening, Caswell. Good evening.
Good evening, Marcia. You think it's bad. You don't believe it can get any worse. Well, look at the Auditor report. Look at the Daily Nation today that says that NUPW in the dark. It can't get worse. You figure it can't get worse, but it does. Each time we reach a low, this government decides, we're going lower. We're going to show that we can get lower. The Auditor General report doesn't have any enforcement, so they don't care. And because there's no real opposition to highlight these things, they just ignore and go along, and they figure about these 9-day wonders because the Auditor was not saying about losing money that last week, He was saying so for years. But what's happening? Nobody answers the Auditor General. He made queries, audit queries. Nothing happens. So until such time as there is some reckoning, somebody is made to account. Because the Director of Finance in the public service, he should inform the police when you have these kind of things going on. But you know what happens? Especially at statutory boards. And that is this is exactly why government loves statutory boards. The accounting is bad. You see, they always say, the bureaucracy in the public service, you're going to cut the bureaucracy. But that bureaucracy is there for a reason. To make sure fellas' hands don't get too far down in the till. But at the statutory board, the government provides them with a lump sum of money, and the minister would call the chairman would tell them to do things, and they will spend money. In the public service, we do the estimate. If you want a car, you put it in the estimate. If you find a bus at that price, you can't turn around and buy the bus. You gotta buy the car, or you gotta go back and get authorization. No. I start to the board to do what I like, and that's why politicians like it. First, you don't have to have qualifications for the jobs. You don't have to have knowledge of the job. You just have to have political connections, and that is why they love statutory board. Give an example. Right now, the people at Bra are up in arms
Mm.
because it has been going on for a long time. But there's so much fear in there. A few people now decide, well, look, we can't let this thing continue anymore. The rules at Bra says jobs must be advertised internally first. And then if you don't find somebody inside, then you go. No, they bring people straight from the accounting firm that the revenue commission came from. You know, just hiring our colleagues or our former colleagues, and nobody doing anything about it. People come in, they're putting them in the wrong salary scale and keeping them there for years, and nobody is doing anything about it. And what hurts them most of all is that the NUPW has a seat on the BRA board. The NUPW also has a seat on the Human Resource Committee of BRA, and they are treated. They have they have the best of both worlds if the union was doing its job, because you have the union man on the board, but people get fired left, right, and center. People get made jobs made redundant. If there's something happens and you don't like a particular fellow, they make the job redundant. Nobody at BRA can make a job redundant because BRA is a government agency that is still controlled by the Ministry of Public Service. And only the Ministry of Public Service can authorize redundancies at the statutory board. But yeah, still better to do it, you know. I know that because I'm representing one of the ones that did it. So they don't have that authority. We're going to sit on the board and allow this to happen and do nothing about it.
Wow.
You see, so this corruption and dishonesty and is almost commonplace now. Not almost, it is commonplace right now. If it is not corrupt, people wonder what's happening.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Franklin, can we just itemize some of the issues? I see Mr. Stewart is there as well. Can we just go over the main? There are lots of concerns, but let's just review some of the concerns of the Auditor General. And then let's look over what are some of the concerns that are there. I mean, my training is in accounting, and you're taught to do auditing, etc. And if you, as an auditor, would find some that there are issues, any kind of discrepancy in a company, etc., you're going to have to, you're going to have to report it. And that company, any good company, they're going to do all that they can to find out what the issue is, what is the leakage, what's going on. How are we losing money? How we can't find millions? How is that possible? So let's go through some of the discrepancies, the issues, and then I think if we could look at what is the role of the Auditor General, just to go, because this is people are learning as well. So good night, Timar. How are you doing?
Good night to you, Marcia. Good night, Caswell. Good night to the audience.
And I
Glad to be back again. As Caswell said, every time we come back, we just seem to be going lower and lower and lower and lower. I mean, if you can't get the lower in Barbados, we're just going down to the scraping the bottoms of the earth in
Well,
terms of governance in this
listen
country.
to me. Listen to me. They will not mash this up. They're not going to mash up this country. They're not going
Yeah.
to match up this country. Now, can you we're going to tag team tonight between you and Caswell. Can you go through what are some of the irregularities and discrepancies that the
Yeah.
Auditor General found
Yes.
this for 2022,
All
Mr.
right.
Stewart?
But what we want to do is paint the historical picture, and then maybe Caswell could give you the specifics that are mentioned. You and Caswell can speak specifically to what's mentioned in the report.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to go back to 2018 when the government signed on to the BERT program, the
Mm-hmm.
Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan. And one of the main uh, challenges on that plan was the high level of transfers to state-owned enterprises, which meaning that the amount of money, tax revenue that has to go into running state-owned enterprises, that was one of the focuses of the IMF program. And the government agreed with the IMF to cut transfers to state-owned enterprises. So Ryan Strong, in giving the analysis in 2018, said that the BERT plan had three phases, and that phase two of that plan was to focus on what they call expenditure reduction through review and analysis of central government and state-owned enterprises, focusing on the merger of potentially afflicted entities, and they gave examples like you can merge corporate affairs and the Financial Services Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that both received subventions from central government. So the idea would be to bring all two under one umbrella, and they would then receive one set of money from central government. So he also said that the government was supposed to review all of the remaining SOEs and departments, and they will determine what expenditure is essential, which expenditure was highly desirable, and what
Mm-hmm.
is optional. And that they sent out a survey into the public, which asked the public which the enterprises they would prioritize and which ones they would keep, and they like, and they had that information going on since 2018. Now, part of the same IMF program was to pass a Public Financial Management Act,
Mm-hmm.
right? And part of the Public Financial Management Act that was mentioned in every IMF report from the day beginning, and it was intended to focus on accountability and transparency and improving the fiscal management of government.
Mm-hmm.
And what the government did with some of the state-owned enterprises, as you can see here, you have no financial statements for Water Authority. You have no financial statements for the Barbados Tourism Product Development Inc. You have no financial statements for the Grantley Adams International Airport. You have no financial statements for CBC, right? And what the government did,
Let's go over that list. CBC, the airport,
right,
right?
there were 14 in all. I can't remember all 14
Right,
off head, but I'm just
right,
giving you the most
right.
important ones I can remember now.
Yes,
CBC,
yes. Mm-hmm.
the Barbados Water Authority, the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc., and the Barbados Tourism Product Development Inc. Uh, the
Yes.
Barbados
Not,
Agricultural Management Company, the Barbados Can, I think it was, Kazo, help me with this one here, the Barbados Can Owners Corporation or so,
Um,
and
BMC, Barbados
yeah,
Agricultural Management.
and Barbados Agricultural Management Company,
And then
right?
there's also the DMC.
Right. There was also a Sports Council as well. There was also Rural Development Commission. They said more than half of these state-owned enterprises did not send in financial statements, right?
so
Now,
there
when
are 38 statutory boards, they said, and 16 of them did not send in any, did not submit any financial statements. And I'm deliberately kind of slowing it down so the opposition can understand what is happening. So of the 38 statutory boards, there are 16 of them that have not yet submitted. Continue, please, Mr. Stewart.
yeah, so Ryan Strong in September of 2020 said was speaking to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Barbados that the government was making significant improvements in bringing all the state-owned enterprises financial statements up to date, and that the government was moving on well in terms of improving reporting in all of the SOEs. And that was reported in the news. That's what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And that the government would have implemented a system that would allow the Treasury and the government and the SOE to be on the same playing field, that government can effectively monitor all the financial transactions. And he said that part of the same Public Financial Management Act required the SOE to submit its management accounting to the Ministry of Finance every month.
Mm. And he's the director of finance, and he has not sounded any alarm
No,
that
no,
he did
No,
not get.
no. He is the minister who claims to be a minister in the prime minister's office.
Oh, yes.
The Constitution don't provide for any such thing, but they have one.
Okay, got you. Got you. Continue, Kimar. Thank you.
yeah. Right. So he said that they were well on the way and that they were improving it and that the SOEs were submitting his financial statements. Now, in December of that same year, he came back and said that when challenged about it, that all was not lost on the government as it relates to facilitating the law and having the SOEs reporting, and that several agencies still did not submit financial reports or today.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you read the Public Financial Management Act, it clearly says that you can sanction state or enterprises for not sending in financial report, right? And it gives specific punishments that that it can be used to go after public servants and go after ministers. I don't know what they call a performance review for
Mm-hmm.
SOEs which fall under your ministry that did not provide the financial reports. So the Public Financial Management Act covers punishments for any SOE that did not submit. Right? So the Office of Finance, the Ministry of Finance, has the power to go after all of these state enterprises that did not submit their financial statements. And you can reference that in the act of itself, and you can reference the speeches of Ryan Strong saying that to the public, right?
No, but Kemar, before you go any further, that is the deception. That is not necessarily what will happen. Because let me tell you something, see? There are no statutory boards in Barbados that are not, except for the Central Bank and National Insurance. There is no other statutory board in Barbados that does not have a majority yard vote.
Mm.
Okay?
Mm.
So who you gonna go after?
Yeah. Well,
That's the problem. That's why to go after, because those people know very well that a lot of them are not there because they have any particular knowledge in the area. They are there as a reward or a little perk for having worked in the campaign, for having been a good BLP or whatever at the time being. So it is just a mockery. You can have all the nice sounding punishments and things in the Public Finance Management Act, but they're not going to be implemented. They're not going to be implemented because the Director of Finance, he was, I'll give a history of him. He used to be a clerk in the Treasury that can get his work done. Next thing you know, he started studying because he had friends, he had family, pushed him up, lied for him to get, because when you're doing ACCS and CJ and stuff, you got to be working in accounts. People in Barbados said he was working, because he was a cashier, he wasn't working in the accounts. And he sort of to ease them through. Then every time there was a vacancy, they put him in. He went to Bra almost collapsed under him. National Insurance.
Wow.
This is the guy who at National Insurance who bought a computer system for $9 million to take care of that would have taken the people down to 2035. And then after a couple of years and all the add-ons and fixing, it come up to $60 million, a $9 million system, and you spend $60 million to update it, to fix it, because it went here wire. Don't listen to advice. No, and then what? You get promoted, and you get promoted. The very first appointment in the public service when this government came into office was his.
Mm-hmm.
You could just, if you, I am not going to suggest anything. I'm going to tell you, he is the guy who sat in all the meetings when the other people were in power. And then the first person to get appointed, these are all events. I'm not drawing any
Mm-hmm.
conclusion. And the first person to get appointed as director of finance, straight from director of national insurance. And I remember one day, to just to show you, he turned up at a meeting at customs. I'm representing the customs officer. Tony Moore is representing the guard. And I came in, I greeted him very well. I know him, I how you doing, that kind of stuff. And then he called me to order. I said, "Well, what are you doing here?" Prime Minister he to come and chair this meeting. I said, "Prime Minister can't do chair this meeting. I am not sitting down in front of you." He said, I said, "I don't care what the Prime Minister told you. You have no authority here. You are not the comptroller of customs. You are not the Prime Minister of Finance. And the rules provide for that." I said, "We are not speaking with you. We got nothing to say to you." So I said, "Well, I going?" He said, "Yeah, you can go." I said, "Young lady with me. Come, girl, let me go." She the frightened too, she the trembling. I said, "Look, come, can do your thing." Tony Moore sat down in the meeting. I don't know what happened after that because they never came back to us over this incident that took place. Because the Prime Minister can get him to do anything. This is the same man that issued instructions to take up the nurses' salaries from the banks. And then he
Yeah.
came on radio and TV and said it was a lie until we played the recording. You know, so when you have people like that, I am saying to you, if he isn't political, it looks so.
Right.
If he isn't, it looks so to me. And as a result, he ain't going after anybody who the political yard folks that they put in these boards. They don't have people to run these boards properly. They're just there to sit down. But I can tell you what they go for. They go for the stipend and the snacks. Because after that board meeting, they got a bunch of food at almost all these board meetings. And that's what they turn up for.
Yeah.
Stipend and snacks.
You
And
know,
one thing, sorry.
go ahead, Kimar. But I just want to those of you who are just joining. Kimar made mention of the what. Just want to make sure I get the right name because sometimes people want to know, exactly where they can find this act, and this is the Public Finance Management Act, and you can find it on the Barbados Parliament at barbadosparliament.com. Public Finance Management Act. And because listen, we are the opposition, so we have to make sure we have all the information. And on the screen, you would see an excerpt of it, and this particular slide is talking about the ministry accountability that Kimar had just mentioned, on what the act says that the minister within the Ministry of Finance, what they will have to do. But obviously, as Caswell is saying, many times it's not done. Go ahead, Kimar.
Yeah. So the act, um, I want to touch on some points that Kazo made. The act gives the director of finance substantial power
Hmm.
to make changes, to subpoena information, to have oversight on any accounting process in the country. I know we are focused on the Auditor General, but through this legislation, the Auditor General was neutered somewhere, and his legs were cut off in this particular legislation. A lot of the powers were given over to an office that they now call the Office of the Comptroller General. So the
Hmm.
com- so the Auditor General now has to report to the Comptroller General.
So hold a
And
minute. So this 2019, because I saw there was an act that went up. I think was just before this. What was wrong with that act? Why did they change it in 2019? Anybody knows?
yeah,
There was,
because
there
the
was
IMF
the
instructed them to the IMF instructed them to pass this act as a way of tackling transparency and accountability in terms of managing public finances. So it was supposed to be a far-reaching act which would
Mm-hmm.
encompass all of the accounting practices, the government, all, and to ensure that there was no or not supposed to be no mismanagement in terms of the handling of public funds.
Right.
They were first of all under the financial act, the financial rules, the old going back for 1971. Then there wasn't anything wrong with them either. But politicians have to pretend that they're doing something. Then they changed it to the not the Financial Management Act. I know the IMF come with this one. There's absolutely no need just enforcement or to follow the rules. But the IMF got to at least look like they're earning the keep. So the companies not. Most of the things the IMF asks people to do in Barbados are telling them to do what are necessary. Because we already have a whole body of rules, and all they do is to destroy, is to put down parties and destroy them. Because they feel like they're experts. So in order to be the expert, you got to come in and pretend and show that you're doing something for it. We have been running the public service in Barbados for God knows how long. We don't need any IMF people who just got geography and all kind of stuff coming in here and telling us how to do our management of anything. It is that they have to appear to be doing something. So they give you this thing, and it looks good, it sounds good. Not even practical, but practical because the rules are unenforceable. They're unenforceable because the director ain't do nothing about it. The statutory boards ain't capable of doing it because they don't have the manpower, they don't have the expertise, because they were never put there for accountability. They were put there for corruption. Most statutory boards, let me tell you something. Urban Development Commission, Rural Development Commission, and you remember those two were formed, and they took up roles that were being done in the public service already, and they were being adequately done. But you have the Poverty Alleviation Bureau, the Ministry of Agriculture. They took roles from them and put them under these different welfare departments. They took these roles to form these commissions where they could get their hands on the money, because you know what, and then you want to build a house,
right,
for somebody. There's no accountability, and I know a person who got a house that was working first of all, they were working, and they were working for good money, but they got a house on the Urban Development Command, and they were working in government service. But they had political connections of the Cardinal King too. So they get a house. I could carry you and show you a house now. But that would not happen under central government. So these things were done to allow the politicians to get their hands on the money. Because you would hear politicians, ministers telling you, I am not the accounting officer when it comes to ministry money. But when it comes to board money, they will call the chairman and say, Chairman, I want you to do X. Chairman, I want you to do Y. And it is done. Mind you, he still doesn't have the power, but he has the influence, and he appoints the chairman. And the thing is, the chairman is appointed by him. So if you don't do what he says, you're gone. So boards are there. The first reason for having a board is corruption, not efficiency. Because what they do then, they turn around and replace the rules from the public service, change public service to board, and the rules remain the same. If you look at the national insurance terms and conditions, now they're the same terms and conditions you have in public service, except now you're dealing with instead of the public service, you just change it up
to the board
and make it look. But the same thing, the same rules, same everything. It has nothing to do with efficiency. Everything to do with corruption.
Corruption.
Even though I want to sidetrack into this thing, but because it's about national insurance, they can't help it. If you look at this,
hold on a minute. Let we're gonna get into the national insurance. Let me let Kimar finish. It starts about that, because I have some question for him. Go ahead, Kimar, and then Mr. Franklin will come in with the NIS, because it's all linked in. It's all connected. Go ahead, Kimar.
Yeah. Right. So the Auditor General had his responsibilities cut under this new Public Financial Management Act, and the government intended to open a new internal audit office that will now be funded by the government. So, what's the point of establishing a new audit office when you already have the Office of Auditor General and you're not giving him the adequate funds to do his job, or you're not increasing his powers, right? So it shows immediately a duplication of processes within the two. It's already Auditor General's office, and the new legislation intended to establish a new internal audit office of government. That makes no sense. But this came through the advice of the IMF, and if you look at these institutions, what the government is doing now is called off-budget financing, where you can find the expenditures. So, for example, the Barbados Water Authority, the sewage tax, the NAS levy for healthcare, and the departure tax, the hotel room tax, right?
Mm-hmm.
All, all of the collection for these taxes are done away from government consolidated fund, and the same Public Financial Management Act has a clause in it which says that SOEs are entitled to charge fees and increase them according to the discretion of the Minister of Finance, right? So these taxes went in under that behest, and it cut off, or it cut off these institutions from quote unquote receiving government transfers, right? So a transfer from government is the allocation that central government or the consolidated fund would give over to a ministry or give over to state or enterprises to be able to run it in a proper manner to ensure that it
Right.
functions.
Right.
So the level of transfers from government to these SOEs were troubling the IMF. The IMF keeps saying to the government, "It's too high, it is too high, it's too high." So in order to cut those transfers, in order to cut those transfers from government, the government cut the subventions to these state-owned enterprises from the consolidated fund and implemented the point of sale levies, again the sewage tax, the hotel room tax, and the departure tax, and the NAS healthcare. So the QEH was moved off budget, the Sanitation Service
Ah.
Authority was moved off budget, the Water Authority was moved off budget, the Barbados Tourism Product Development Inc. was moved off budget, and the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. was moved off budget as well.
So they're
So
trying to decentralize. They're supposed to be decentralizing it, right?
No, that's
yes,
not decentralizing it. What they're doing, they are hiding it.
Yeah.
right,
Decentralizing it, they're hiding it. What they did, they are supposed to account for these monies. You created all these little funds. Remember, I told you on one of these programs
Ah.
that they announced them in the budget. Under the law as we have it in Barbados, you cannot raise any money in the budget unless it goes into the consolidated fund.
Yes, I
They
remember
ignore that.
that.
They
Yes.
ignore that. And they go and do their fancy because they want to get their hands on the people money and they're hiding it. So nobody knows what the true expenditure is. But the Auditor General, even though they try to take his powers, they can't because he has a constitutional job. He reports to Parliament. You don't report to any of them. So what they can do, they
but
can
he no
carve
report.
out
But they changed the law. They changed the law to say that the Auditor General no reports to the Comptroller General.
the Auditor General don't report nobody but Parliament. Don't mind them, and that law that would be unconstitutional. But they put it there because they want the Auditor General not to do his functions, that so they can get there. Yeah, because the Auditor General once appointed, you can't even remove him from office unless there's some sort of tribunal that would determine if he or misbehavior or unless he went losing money or incompetent or something like this. So they can't really touch him.
Mm-hmm.
So what they try to do, and it is to take things away from him, but they cannot because any money, like President, if the government give you money as a subvention, as a grant, something, the Auditor General can check into that. He has wide sweeping powers. So wherever government money goes, he can follow it. So when you put these systems in place, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have the power. He doesn't have the staff. So that is why you would have these problems. He can only do so much with the amount of people that he has. So when they starve him of staff, they starve the country of accountability.
So you're not accountable.
That is what they have done. The IMF shouldn't tell you how to teach you how to be corrupt.
So let me ask you something, Mr. Stewart, since you raised it. So in them trying to decentralize this, the funding of these different agencies, etc., why do you think that these agencies are refusing? Well, it seemed to me refusing or have not submitted a financial report. What is going on in these ministries?
Yeah, well, think back to the Barbados Water Authority, where the general manager said that he was using the money owed to the sewage tax to run the Barbados Water Authority. And the financial rules only allow the Minister of Finance to approve the spending of taxpayers' money, not a general manager. He's not even the CEO of the organization that he could approve spending of funds. But he's doing it, and they're not doing anything about it. So if you're making $18 million a month at Water Authority and sewage tax, as Clay Maskell said, $18 million a month, and still the financial statements are not up to date, that he can report that he made 380 odd million over 3 years, but then the facts show that the tax was making $80 million a month. So you see the big financial discrepancy between the two.
Yes.
Now, if we had audited financial statements, we could go and reference the statements and we would not have to rely on what the general manager is saying compared to what Clay Maskell or Ryan Sean is saying. So that's the problem. So they bury the financial statements because the financial statements will give you an accurate record of all the financial transactions happening within the SOE. And then that puts them on the IMF scrutiny because the IMF will tell them what expenditures and they like to cut. And it will also put them on the public scrutiny where they can no longer hide the corruption. So by the time you catch on up on the statements, say 5 years, 10 years down, if you see any discrepancies, nobody in Barbados don't seem to get locked up when it comes to financial corruption. So even though the facts are there, the evidence is there, the Auditor General continues to report and show you where the corruption is. In a couple of years' time, nobody would go after these fellas if they put out the office.
Yeah. So there's 16 of the statutory boards and government entities that have not done their financial statements, have not reported. And this is where I'm slowing it down because I want the opposition to understand what is happening. There's 16 of them, and let me share this tab. You can take a screenshot. Listen, take a screenshot. Begin to use your
Could you read them out? Could you read them out loud?
Let me read them out loud. And guys, as I'm reading, take a screenshot. Those of you who can, it's of this paragraph here. Okay. And use your social media and call them out. Call them out. Be the opposition. I tell you, people, they're not going to mash up this country. Barbados Water Authority, the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, Caribbean International Airways Limited, the Grantley Adams International Airport, the National Conservation Commission, the National Housing Corporation, the National Sports Council, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Rural Development Commission, Technical and Vocational Education and Training, TVET Council, Transport Board, the Barbados Agricultural Credit Trust, Barbados Agricultural Management Company, the Barbados Cane Industry Corporation, the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc., and the Barbados Tourism Product Authority. These 16 government entities, it's printed in the newspaper. We can reinforce it using our social media, using WhatsApp. that they need to submit the
Yeah.
financial statements. Go ahead.
Martha, you know what's interesting about all of these SOEs, these particular ones? These are the ones that are directly impacted by the IMF state-owned enterprise reform. Remember, the government appointed a consultant that they alleged that he was being paid $27,000 a month uh to consult on SOE reform. I think his name was Jordan, Oliver Jordan or so, who I think he's now the chairman of the FSC too as well, right? They appointed this chairman to oversee the SOE reform. And these particular institutions that listed,
Mm-hmm.
Water Authority, we see what's happening there with the sewage tax. We see that there's financial corruption going on there. We understand why they would hide that. That is supposed to be privatized under the IMF program, hence why they're holding back the financial statements. The airport, how could you be looking at least the airport for 30 years and you can't even get a financial statement right?
Correct.
Not a, so CBC supposed to be privatized. Transport Board is supposed to be privatized. NHC was already turned over into a private entity called Hope Inc. Right? The Barbados Tourism Inc. that was moved off budget as well to be funded by the hotel room and departure tax. So therefore the money coming into these institutions, you can't see them in the consolidated fund. Hence why the Auditor General could say that there are expenditures that are missing, and they're missing because the government rerouted them from going into the consolidated fund, allowing the SOEs to collect them directly and transfer them among each other and stop it from coming into the central government. So when the IMF looks at the government books, they will say, okay, well you cut transfers to SOEs by 200 million because you remove these you remove these SOEs from the books. But the level of financial transactions are still happening, not at the level of government, but at the level of the SOE, so that when Water Authority collects the money direct, the only way to find out how much money that tax has made would be to look at the financial statements. And if you can't have financial statements, then you can forever hide the true level of transparency as it relates to money at these state-owned enterprises.
Oh
You know,
my goodness. Go ahead, Mr. Franklin.
when they were using the Water Authority to collect taxes, I was in the Senate and I said to them that the Water Authority cannot collect taxes because, and then they did an amendment then as a result of my objections and give the Water Authority the power to collect. But they still couldn't do it legally because it was raised in their budget. These people have no regard for rules. They do what they like. If it suits them to do it. And I tell you all, and I hear you calling this man a minister of finance. He is not the minister of finance. And mind you, I've seen him sign documents that say that he's the minister responsible for severance and all kind of thing. Never was. So even those rules that he signed could be challenged in court. He has no such authority.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
no. What I'm saying to you is something has to happen. Somebody needs to get locked up. Some people go to get United States people to come here and lock up somebody else again. Because that's the only way somebody in Barbados to get locked up for thieving government money. Because we don't take it seriously. I remember when we have the act in Barbados is old. Much was old, but it was still good.
So
And
they change it so they could hide stuff. It seems to me because now they're not being accountable. They're not being accountable. That's what has happened. Opposition. That's what has happened, and we've got to call them out.
Yeah. But if we listen to Ryan Strong was out front saying how much SOEs were submitting financial statements. As I said, to put in the legislation, the war report every month. So if he's saying that they were submitting reports every month, how come no you can't get a report? Right?
Are they withholding them from the Auditor General? Are the reports done and they are withholding them because they don't want him to see what has happened in them?
Yeah.
You see,
Somebody's
Well,
lying
the
somewhere.
Auditor General has the power to see everything. The problem is when the Auditor General sends a query, an audit query, people ignore it.
yeah.
That is
Well,
an offense. But they still, but there is no punishment because the
no,
Auditor General does not have any enforcement power.
no. Well, the legislation that was changed gave the it gave powers that you can find FD or the officers or the accounting officers make any request for information that would help in any audit or to or if you jam any investigation that you could be fined $10,000 or 12 months in prison. All of that is in the new legislation, and that power was given to the Comptroller General.
Now, you see, the thing is, the Auditor General does not have any enforcement power. What they have done is to try to neuter the Auditor General because he is the only one with the constitutional authority to do these investigations. So that is why you would pick up this. But we're talking about an internal audit department and all kind of nonsense. The Auditor General, when I worked at National Insurance, I don't know if they still have them there because he stationed people at National Insurance every working day because the transactions were so much. People from the audit office used to report to National Insurance. They don't used to go to the audit office. They used to work at. When you come in, you would think that they were National Insurance staff. No, they were working in a little room there, and they were asking for documents and getting them out. So the Auditor General can even put people to work in your office if he sees it necessary. But he has to have the staff to do so. But he's not given the staff. And the reason why they're not giving the staff because they want to be able to hide things. And if the Auditor General has adequate staff, the staff will be able to ferret out what is going on. So they don't want him to do that. This whole system is a system based on corruption.
Somebody here is asking, Peter Way is asking, is there still an accounting general?
There is an accountant general. The accountant general is just the person responsible for the treasury to pay out the money. They don't really they don't be like enforcing anything really. This is like the government paymaster, the person responsible for the treasury. So the accountant general will pay out the money once the minister signs a warrant and send it off down there. The accountant general will release it if she got it or he got it.
Yeah. But you know that the Accountant General usually produces a report that's tabled in Parliament every year. And since the government came in, no statements were released from the Accountant General whatsoever since 2018.
Listen to me, and listen to me very carefully. The Treasury Department every day by 2:30, 3 o'clock, used to be able to tell the Minister of Finance what are the state of government accounts until Owen Arthur took bad advice and changed it to an accrual system. Because the Treasury is about cash management. It is how much money you get and how much money you pay out. It ain't all this kind of, because if you accrue, let's say you accrue the land taxes, but the bond pay land taxes, it can look as though you got a lot of money there, but not cash. So the system was destroyed by Owen Arthur when he listened to stupid advice and talking about we should have an accrual system. Treasuries all over the world use receipts and payments. How much you get, cash management. That's what the Treasury is about. Like at the end of the day, the Minister of Finance want to know, Accountant General, how much money I got there, not how much money owed to me. And they sort of change up the government accounting system, and again to hide things. So this is the start, And one of the people behind it, the principal person who started was Owen Arthur.
Yeah. But you know that Dennis Kelman, I heard Dennis Kelman speaking about cash accounting versus accrual accounting. And he said that when Owen Arthur left office, that the amount of hidden debt to the same off budget financing, when they brought to book the debts were so high, and that added on significantly to the high levels of debt that Owen would have left when he stepped out. So The same thing is happening right now, where the government is hiding these financial transactions through the state-owned enterprises. So whenever the next government comes in and they decide now to bring to book the financial transactions of the government, much like what happened during the own Alpha time, our current debt levels will increase rapidly. The
Mm,
state, the transfers to state-owned enterprises will go back up to the state that it was at. Because it,
mm,
as I said, they're saying that they cut the levels, but the levels aren't really cut. As
right.
Caswell said, all they're doing now is using the parliament and legislation to reroute the money through the SOE. And as the Auditor General is showing us, the SOEs are havens for corruption. They don't do no financial reporting. You can never have the true state of the finances of the SOEs. So that's perfect for governments to run whatever racket, issue inflated contracts. Uh, if they want, and we're seeing many examples of how the government using the SOEs can facilitate corruption and theft of taxpayers' funds. Just read the Auditor General's report and you can clearly see exactly what we are speaking about.
What, yeah, what's
Look at,
happening?
look at,
What,
For
sorry, go ahead.
instance, let me give an example from this Auditor General's report. We had a situation at the NCC where you had one of these political operatives who get a job up there who should be employing people because he got a business. They're making there, they put it there as a supervisor or whatever it is, and he is using his trucks to do the government work and paying him and getting paid for doing so. All right. Now, if you want to get work from the government, and then you should bid for it. Nobody ain't bidding, but he has close political ties, and that is the problem.
right.
These things are done for corruption. We have a situation now. You want to clean up the ashes and clean the streets, and you get somebody. You give a person a contract to do it to employ the people. No, MTW have been employing people from the time I know myself and before. So why do you want a person who has never been involved in that type of work to be? You give him a contract and then, so God man, it is horrendous what the government is doing, but because there's no official opposition, they get and they get a little bit more and more because it was bad before when they had an opposition, but it's even worse now. But you ain't
Yeah.
got now. But so look, so it said in the report. I'm trying to find it where they said that he was um, paying the NCC was paying him to use his trucks in his work.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, I have it here. Do you have it with you there?
I trying to find it. I see.
Yeah,
Oh,
let me you have it?
I
If
mean,
you have it, go ahead. I have it.
no, I got the wrong paper. I was looking in the nation, but it's the Bible listed there.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
it says here that there is a clear conflict of interest. This is now at the NCC. A clear conflict of interest is supervisor of the cleanup initiative, dubbed the 360 program because of the number of people contracted to be part of the initiative, utilized his own trucks to move debris, engage the services of another supplier, and set rates for that supplier. So right away there's that conflict of interest because he's using his own truck, then he's using this other supplier that we don't even know if he's related or connected to that supplier, and then he's the one who's setting the rates for that supplier. So so you can see the conflict of interest that's there. And that's a form of corruption, right? This is a form of corruption. This is a dangerous precedent which should be corrected. Trotman said he urged the NCC, which has an annual budget of more than 25 million, to establish procurement policies to govern its operations. Opposition, begin to use your social media, right, and call out these people. According to the Auditor General, an audit of certain procurement activities of the NCC was requested by the PS of the Ministry of Environment and National Beautification based on concerns outlined by the NCC chairman. In a report to the minister, the chairman indicated that only one firm was performing grease trap and septic well cleaning across NCC facilities, and that the company was paid approximately 1,553,402 over the 10-month period, January to October 2022. The chairman and deputy chairman expressed their concerns at the absence of contractual arrangements and lack of proper oversight for these services. You're talking about over a million, 1.5 million.
But no, these things
The
have to be approved by
NCC
the board.
arrangement. Go ahead.
These things have to be approved by the board. So how can the chairman and the deputy chairman not know and express concern? That means you have people at the lower level performing board functions. That's what I'm telling you. The statutory boards are designed for corruption. Tom Adams in 1980 published a circular requiring all of these statutory boards to put financial rules in place. That is 1980. They might get them done yet? They might get them done yet. Why?
So I see what you were saying now while you wanted to go. So now I'm making a connection with the NIS. So if these SOEs are not providing financial statements, it would seem to me, with my I don't practice accounting in Barbados, so with my knowledge of accounting, it seems like this is a way to hide all kinds of activities. Could that be the same thing that they plan to do while they change out they made it a board? The NIS is the changes that they made with the NIS. Could that be the same same plan that they have for it?
It isn't because they made them a board. It is because they want to take over the operations of the fund. But we caught them here on this show and caught them here backpedaling because they are no wondering, but Caswell saw this. Not they don't want nobody to see. That is why they made the amendments so nebulous that you really couldn't zero in on them. You actually had to sit down with a pencil and write in the things we have as they go on, and then read them back to see what was happening. It was done. All of these things were done to get their hands on the National Insurance Fund. You must remember, and as I told you, the lady sent me an article from the Barbados Today from 3 months prior to the chairman saying this was May 30th, saying that this is what they were going to do. But no, they got catch doing it. He said it was a mistake. No, it was a plan. But they didn't know that they had evil eyes looking at them.
Yeah,
So
Marcia, the NAS, the government is seeking to use the same tactic of budget financing for the NAS too. So they want to cut the NAS from off central government from getting transfers from central government to allow the NAS to be self-funded.
Right. Okay.
One, that would meet the IMF stipulation of reducing transfers to the state-owned enterprises. Two, it would allow the board, the statutory board, much of what's happening through the other public entities, to more manage the funds of the NAS as what they're doing now with the other ones. So when you establish the board, you're also changing the terms of employment for the workers that are there. And the government has agreed with the IMF also to cut the wage bill. Right? So,
but I'll tell you something. The National Insurance staff were public officers. And the public officers should be paid from the Treasury. That is what the rules provide for. And every government that we had, every administration, make National Insurance pay them back. They would do. So National Insurance was funding their own staff. When this money was supposed to be going into their fund, they were using it for all kinds of fancy things, including because paying public officers because national insurance staff were public officers then. So that might be a reason why they want to make them part of the board, because national insurance then would be paying its own staff legally, because they were required to pay back the money to the government. You know, the government make them pay back that money every time. Government when they do it one time, they had to go and pay them, and national insurance funds were not designed for that. If you look at the regulations, you look at the act, it was not provided for. It is just like the hospital now stressing they want to get more people paying. Those things were done from our taxes. That is why we have the taxes in Barbados initially were for health, education, roads, and then they put taxes in place for all of them. So there's a duplication of taxes because you were already paying taxes to cover your health. You were already paying taxes for education. You were already paying taxes to fix the roads. That is what the original taxes were all about. They took that tax money and spent it for something else and then make you pay again. That's what this is all about in this country. A lot of sleight of hands, and because our people don't do civics or anything, they don't really know how our government runs.
How it works. Yeah.
So they keep you ignorant.
And that's why we're hoping that this show, because I learned a lot from the both of you tonight already. You know, so I think that this show is so important. You know, and it's a show like this, you need to watch it, sit down even while you're doing stuff at home, doing the dishes, put it in and listen to it again. This is all about this here, your country. None of us being paid for anything we're doing on here tonight. It's about this. It's about your country. Yeah. If we look, if we were to look even closer, a little closer, gentlemen, about what's happening at the NCC, what the Auditor General is saying is happening at the NCC. This says the audit found that one of the entity, which is owned by the supervisor, right, removed debris in the constituency which he supervises, and he also sets the rates for the service for that area, right? So there go again, lots of conflict of interest, because when you give somebody, they have is $25 million budget, you know, that they have, right? They have 25 million budget, and if you do not have all the checks and balances in place, then you're going to have these kinds of things happening. And the big question is, why isn't the Ministry of Finance, why aren't they putting, you know, closer checks and balances, and why aren't they you know, getting into these ministries and so on? Why aren't they checking? The word I'm looking for is checking behind them. Why aren't they doing that?
Yeah, Marcy, you know, remember during the COVID period, we had ash workers. You still had they had something called the Clean and Green program, right? So what the government did with those particular programs, remember, the government agreed with the IMF to put all public procurement contracts in Akaipo. So if we had that process in place where all contracts totaling government procurements over $1 million were in Akaipo, we could have gone and investigated any possible forms of corruption that was happening at NCC. But remember, the government set up these crash programs as a means to win elections, which was just to give people jobs. As you can see clearly here, the government was just pumping money into these things, putting the friends to oversee the programs, to allow them friends know to spend taxpayers' money free and willy-nilly and without check and balance. So that's why I always said that COVID was not only a health crisis, but it was also a corruption crisis, specifically in Barbados. And I always want to encourage persons to remember the emergency management orders that were put in place, which said that the Cabinet of Barbados vests all authority and power in the office of Prime Minister to make any decisions financial. No matter what decision, the office of Prime Minister had the power to make it. So financial rules were broken. The government steps past every procurement rule because that legislation allowed the Prime Minister to become a de facto dictator. That all she had to say, well, in the name of emergency, I give in the NCC $50 million to go and clean up the road on the Ash program. And it wasn't no check and balance. Not even the Parliament could provide a check and balance based on how the legislation was structured. So,
You see, I argued in my case, and I will argue consistently, that there can be no secret laws in Barbados. Our law, our system of government does not provide for secret laws. And every law that is passed, every regulation that is made, has to come to Parliament as soon as practicable. So far, none of those COVID rules and directives have set foot in Parliament. Not one. Prime Minister has laid none. And that is
that's
the
how it's
problem.
set up. That's how the legislation is set up. So,
I know it's set up. But the problem is the legislation can't be set up like that. That is illegal. Because you cannot have a secret law. Because suppose I had a secret law that passed a secret law and somebody come and hold you one and lock you up. And they say, well, this was the law that the Prime Minister put in place and you don't got a clue what's going on. There can be no secret laws. Every law must, if it is not passed in Parliament, and it is a rule that is made under the authority of any law, any statute, those rules must either be approved by Parliament in either two ways, by negative resolution or by affirmative resolution. Affirmative resolution means that they have to be placed in Parliament and voted on before they become effective.
right. So you're saying to me that
Negative resolution is that it becomes law immediately as the minister signs it. But then he has to lay it in Parliament and they have 40 days. Now, if those 40 days have passed and no member of the House or Senate says, I want those laws annulled, I want those rules annulled, then it remains to be good laws. But none of these have been done. And I don't care what
right. So you're saying that during COVID, when the government passes Emergency Management Act and the country went under a state of emergency, and the Prime Minister and the Attorney General was coming to the country issuing verbal directives to people, that all of these verbal directives were illegal?
Every one of them. And I can tell you why. Section 25 of the Constitution provides for how a state of emergency should be done. And then there was an act of Parliament putting more flesh on it. They ignored both because they were saying, oh, there was nothing in the Constitution that allowed for a public health emergency. Now, I have the Constitution here with me. Let me step by Section 25. And I can tell you why I will call the Attorney General a liar. And I'm not being any nice fella tonight. He was lying to this country. He said there was nothing in the Constitution. I heard him here. But that is why they had to put these things in place, because there was no laws to deal with a public health emergency. That was the biggest bunch, a load of hogwash that I've heard come from the mouth of lawyers. You know, mind you was smiling when he was doing it, but he was lying. I tell people, when you see a shark coming and you be smiling, with his teeth showing, he ain't smiling, you know, he can eat you.
You know, yeah. While you're looking for that, those who are listening, those in the opposition, we are the opposition. These 16 state-run enterprises that have not filed financial statements, we need to call them out. Use your social media, give them no rest. You understand? Make a fuss, voice notes, everything. Do it, because this what he's presenting here will have no teeth if nobody's there to enforce it. The Ministry of Finance, they're not carrying out what they're supposed to do. All of those entities should be sending financial statements to them, and it hasn't been done. And so we, the people, we will have to demand it from them. Kimar?
Yeah. Um. Right. So that was very interesting to learn from Caswell that all of the health directives issued by the government were illegal, right? Because right, the government spent so much money during COVID. This on top of being the highest tax collector ever in the history of any government of Barbados, right? So they had money. But still the government went on a borrowing spree during that period and borrowed so much money from the IADB and the like through that thing, right? And when they issued these restrictions to the Emergency Management Act, uh, the Prime Minister said that she wanted to implement a $2 billion plan over 2 years, which is $1 billion a year in economic activity, right? And I just want to list out some of the measures that they would roll out at the time. They said that all businesses except essential services were ordered to be closed as the government sought to contain the spread of the jab, well, not the jab, but the disease, right? And they put all of these different protocols in place. The government was buying or procuring all of the stuff that we needed. So like the health, the spray, the sanitizing guns. They were buying masks. They were setting up the scanners to come in, right? So the government was spending money through the Ministry of Health without any check or balance, and that's how we could have had the job scandal with good vibrations, procuring jobs from somewhere in the world without any proper accounting procedure in place, right? So they shut down the borders of the country. Well, they didn't really shut them down per se, but the minimizes operations, or they said they lock us down as people, lock us in our house, and still had the tourists running up and down in Barbados freely. Had us on lockdown, had us on curfew, but still, the officials were out partying, whatever. And in the dead of night, sometimes you would hear the Prime Minister come with a press conference and just start to spew these numbers of these among millions, right? So to give you some of the measures that they would have rolled out, they said they wanted a homes for all program, right? And they were intended to use $50 million in the housing credit fund to unlock another $200 million in financing to help Barbadians build 1,000 houses, construct 1,000 houses in Barbados, right? That has never happened. They amended the catastrophe fund and add the word pandemic to tap into the catastrophe fund to get money from India, right? They had something called a household survival program where they say that they were taking $20 million to help displaced workers, right? They had a welfare, there were two welfare programs, two $600 programs, one from the welfare of itself, and then there was another one from the adopt a family program, right? This is another $600. This is the same $600 program that the current MP for the city used to solicit votes, and that there were so many persons from the city of Bridgetown on that $600 program, and when they got in, eventually they cut off the program, and so many people in Bridgetown were removed from that program, right? So it was a splurge of taxpayers' money. Again, no proper contracting, no proper accounting procedures, and the government just splurging money as electioneering tactics, right? They asked the NAS to defer receiving payments from employers. So those employers, not employees, those employers who owe the government NAS money, the government deferred the money and they didn't want to take the money from the employers. They went into the small hotel investment fund and took out $20 million from in there. Right? Again, no accounting. Can't see it no mention in the Auditor General report. Can't see it being accounted for. No way. They said also that they were rolling out $800 million in partnership with the private sector. And $400 million of that focused directly on the Sam Lars. And let's see you have the Sam Lars up right here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That $400 million came from the Chinese.
Right.
And from the Chinese Exim Bank. It was $200 million US that the Chinese provided for that project. Right?
Right. It's
And
saying is it 241 million? And according to the Auditor General, they can only account for 65 million. I don't know if everybody's seen this in the Nation newspaper. Get the Nation newspaper and read it. Was it 241 million US?
yeah, it was 200 million US the last figure you got.
That they got. Well, according to the Auditor General, they can only account for 65 million. I don't know if anybody you saw that, Caswell.
Yes, I saw. I was shocked this morning. You know, I wake up early morning. I pick up my newspaper because I read online, and I couldn't get back to sleep. Yeah. But Kimar, let me read the thing here for you now. What the Constitution, the Supreme Law of Barbados says, and not what these people do with the Financial Management Act. It says in this chapter, period of public emergency means any period during which Barbados is engaged in any war or there is enforced a proclamation by the Governor General declaring that a state of public emergency exists, or there is enforced a resolution of each House supported by the vote of not less than 2/3 of the members of Barbados are threatened by subversion. No,
You dropped out a little bit, Caswell. So just repeat the last bit.
it says, or C, there is enforced a resolution of each House supported by the votes of not less than 2/3 of all the members of that House declaring that democratic institutions in Barbados are threatened by subversion. And now subsection 2 goes on to say, a proclamation made by the Governor General shall not be effective for the purposes of subsection 1 unless it is declared therein that the Governor General is satisfied, and I'm only going to read that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the imminence of a state of war between Barbados and another state, or as a result of the occurrence of any earthquake, hurricane, flood, fire, outbreak of pestilence, outbreak of infectious disease, or other calamity, whether similar to the foregoing or not. So COVID was the outbreak of an infectious disease. So they did not have to go to Parliament and put in any new laws because it was already there in the Constitution. But they were doing hanky-panky. Because the Constitution is quite clear. He is saying there was no provision for a public health emergency. So when he says, you can have an emergency if it's the outbreak of infectious disease, that wasn't health. He was lying.
Wow.
He stood up in front of the people of Barbados and smiled and told that lie. Because you know the people don't read the Constitution. And then he certified to Parliament that that was the case. And then Parliament passed stupid legislation that he should know better.
But sometimes with him and all of them, I'm wondering. I don't know which one is better to say. Kimar, is it that he just does not understand the law, the Attorney General, or we to say he just does not understand law, or is it that he is outright, it's an outright lie with the intention to lie? or this man is just incompetent, because it just seems like this there is just incompetence all
Yeah,
around, from the prime minister go right down. They're just an incompetent bunch of people.
yeah, yeah. Well, if you could remember during COVID, when the Attorney General launched his attack on the prison officers,
Mm-hmm.
um, he came on TV and said this was one of the first where he called it a super spreader event, and he said that two main events were responsible for the massive outbreak in Barbados, and he called two events by name, and he called one Brandy and Panani, and
Yes, I
no,
remember that.
right, and no on the rear of the bus crawl, right,
Mm.
and he was happy. He was happy that he even got a shirt with Brandy and Panani. He was calling himself No Brandy and Panani,
Mm-hmm.
and had it on his shirt, walking all over Barbados smiling. But I say that to say that he was Attorney General before under the one after regime, so he has experience at that level, right?
Mm.
Experience is not ability,
he
you
he
know.
has the experience.
Because do something, see, you remember, I can give you a couple of examples. You remember the time when I saw there was a little problem in the Royal Barbados Police Force, and they said that something is wrong here. I remember reading that act, and I only got one deputy. He had already appointed a second deputy, and they lambasted me, made fun at me at a press conference, get the reporters to ask the prime minister stupid questions so she could trust her lashes in me. And then when they realized that they were wrong, they went back and passed a sneaking parliament and passed an amendment to the act so they could and back did it for 2 years so that they can cover themselves. That is one. All it know people are calling the Barbados Police, the Royal Barbados Police Force, the Barbados Police Service. There is no such thing in law in Barbados right now. I'm going to Attorney General because the Police Act has not been amended, and the Police Act sets out the name of the police force in Barbados. It says it shall be the Royal Barbados Police Force. So when they put that something about in the Constitutional Amendment Act and they refer to the Barbados Police Service, it can be the Royal Barbados Police Force because the Royal Barbados Police Force has not been renamed by law.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
that's what that's the level of incompetence.
incompetence that is happening. So I'm here. I see Miss McLean here, and I wanna to jump, let her jump in here, if she's ready. Good night, ma'am. Good night. How are you doing?
Hi, good evening. I am doing all right, a little bit offset by what happened on Monday. I think I told you that I lost one of my beach buddies to the sea
Yes,
on Monday morning.
yes,
That
I
was
heard.
particularly not happy at all for us, but we take these things in our stride, and God knows how and what happens and when. So,
Yes,
but it just tells me that we have to take life very seriously, and I think of it in the context of what we're doing, and be the best we can be at whatever we do. I was listening to Caswell reading the extract from the Constitution, and one of the things I did was to go to a copy of it to make sure that nothing had changed, because I have the Constitution that I had for several years, and I have one where the word president has been substituted for governor general. So what I did was to look at the two things, because I think what we are hearing from Caswell, and the bit I heard when I joined, after I joined, is that as a country that says it operates according to the rule of law, we are rules based in how are we supposed to be rules based in how we do things. Um, and the Constitution, as he pointed out, is supreme, and therefore, unless we amend the Constitution, um, then whatever legislation, whatever laws, whatever policies we put in place these things have to be compatible or consistent with the provisions of the Constitution. And unfortunately, we see a number of things happening, which when we do the investigation, and I say thanks to Caswell for that, what we have is really a set of decisions taken that run afoul of the Constitution, and therein lies a serious problem for the country. I guess with all that has happened and that is happening around the country, people have not been able to challenge it. As you say, some of these things may go unnoticed because it takes a person who is following these things very closely to recognize where these major errors are made, or decisions to ignore the fundamental provisions of the Constitution, and go ahead to make decisions. Those things happen, but I think it's something we have to really pay some close attention to, because at some point many of these things can be challenged. Of course, decisions have been taken, resources utilized, and done so in some instances under questionable circumstances, based on all that I've heard raised in the last when I joined in the last 15 minutes or so. So I think this is cause for concern for any right-thinking Barbadian. Um, and therefore, if we say, because you see, the other concern that I have is that you have an administration that has come into office making significant promises about transparency, good governance, and all of these things. And at the end of the day, what we are actually realizing is a significant slip or falling away from some of the standards that we expect, and that to which we have become accustomed in a lot of ways. I will just very quickly say something in terms of the Auditor General's office, because I believe you've been looking at a number of the issues. Some years ago, when I sat on what was the Public Accounts Committee, the Auditor General, the same gentleman who was the Auditor General, he has been for a number of years, he was making the case about staffing. And at that time, the Prime Minister, as the then leader of opposition, was the chair of that, the Auditor General, the Public Accounts Committee. And he was making a case for staffing. And I recall that I pointed out that if you are an auditor general, that's your audit function for government. You need to have the caliber of persons, not only numbers, but you need to have the caliber of persons. And therefore, there was a case made, and a case still can be, and should be made for the recruitment of not clerical officers, as the position is. You see, because it's part of in terms of the public service classification of posts and so on, some of these things fall within that you want people who are trained in auditing. And I believe I've said this before, maybe in this forum, that you have people at the University of West Indies, for example. When I was there, so it goes back many years, I remember, in fact, I can call her name, God rest her soul. She was the sister of Stephen Strickland, and she taught public accounting, public accounts. So people have been doing public accounting for years. So there are people who have been trained and who can be hired, starting as audit assistants in the public service, working in an office such as the Auditor General. So I think a critical part of making sure that he and his office, that office, the Auditor General and staff can do the work, is that it is properly resourced. And that is critical, because you read about a number of audits being done by private firms and so on, and that's necessary to get the work done. But clearly, when I see the list of companies there, there's a lot to be done, a lot of information that has to be shared with the public. And, in the face of all the promises made, I am very concerned about the issues that continue to be flagged. and the what appears to me to be even a falling in standards of reporting, etc. And we should not be going backwards; we should be going forward. Um, because where information is not properly accounted for, there is the potential for all kinds of negatives. Because I hesitate to say corruption in terms of everything, because at the end of the day, the question you have to ask is whether systems have been ignored, systems have been followed in part, if there's been poor reporting, etc. But even and if there is, what are the possible consequences of that? And so there's cause for concern. But
Yeah.
because, as I said, I joined late, I would have missed much of what happened, let's say, in the first hour of the program. So
Right.
I will
But
share those initial thoughts and pause.
yes, yes. Thank you so much, Ms. McLean, for giving us that kind of background. But what we were discussing, we had started to look at the Auditor General's report and to look at the areas of concern. And the first one that we looked at was NCC,
Mm-hmm.
where we looked at the conflict of interest at the NCC, and that in itself, these are red flags, and he's saying, he's warning against these kinds of things. But then you look at a project like this, Sam Lord's Castle, and in my calculation, I don't know if anybody else on the panel can help me to calculate, because if $241 million, according to the Auditor General, was given to the project, and they can only account for 65 million. I am seeing that over $176 million, they cannot account for more than, this looks like more than two-thirds of it. Is that correct, guys? In my understanding, is that correct? Check, Kimar, check your WhatsApp. I sent the article, from the Nation article, to your WhatsApp, and to also to Mr. Franklin's WhatsApp. Let me send it to Miss McLean. But based on what is in this Nation news article, anybody else out there from the opposition, we the people, can you look at the and do your own calculation, because this is that I don't understand.
Okay,
Um,
Marcia, let me say, for the amount of money that is unaccounted for, I would hazard a guess. Well, first of all, I think what we would need to find out is how these funds were dispersed, etc. Because I would hate to think that volume of money um, would just be long term, not being able, that somebody can account for that. My question really and truly was, in terms of the allocation, what were the costs incurred and so on. So I think it smacks of probably incomplete accounting, because the sum is so large. But
mhm.
in a case like this, if in fact it is a question of incomplete accounting, normally when the Auditor General highlights these, ministries and agencies are expected to reply promptly, providing the information. So, I would hate to think that people, for that kind of amount of money, that's a large sum of money that needs to be, you know, to be.
Because
Maxine,
Yeah. Yes,
you
guys.
were you were minister of government, and you know that when your ministry needed money, they had to go to the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance the minister had to issue a warrant to
That's
the
right.
Treasury to get money, and then you can then your PS, because you couldn't touch it, then your PS would do whatever it was supposed to do with that money. The problem here is that the government has set up so many other off-budget funds. They want with the water and sewage tax,
That's correct.
all that kind of stuff. So a lot of that money is missing.
Well,
The
it's
below the
sorry, go
line
ahead.
something. So and the thing is, the money that do not go into the consolidated fund. So there is no check and balance where the money goes from the Minister of Finance issuing instructions to pay to the Treasury, and the Treasury send it to administrative minister, then not the minister, the permanent secretary does. That isn't happening. So anything goes. And that
No,
is the problem here.
no,
So
I think you've touched on an important point, and this was something that was looked at and addressed, and I think it has resurfaced again. I mean, there was this term below the line accounting, and these separate these funds that were not, fund monies that didn't go into the consolidated fund, and obviously if that those funds are not part of that system where there is a clear set of procedures and paper trails that exist, then there all kinds of questions can be asked, and in fact, there's to me a greater burden on the officials to properly account for those kinds of monies. But we know that that often does not happen, and with the greater proliferation of such accounts, the greater the difficulty in accounting for them. I reference was made to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and the pandemic, etc. And I remember that we had private entities giving millions of dollars. In one instance, I believe I would have heard, I'm trying to remember the exact figure, by $2 or $3 million. And this was supposed to assist persons in need. But rather than put the money, and I'm searching my brain to make sure I have it correct. Rather than put the money into institutions or government agencies known to provide assistance to families in need, I think instructions were given or funds were given to members of parliament. Now, that to me is not the way to go. And because if monies are given to the social services, I mean, elder care or child care board, where there may be families with infants in need or whatever, that it is better to trace, and it's not about expediting any distribution or disbursement of resources. Those things can be done quickly, but I think when you see that happening, then it creates the potential for partisan distribution of resources and that kind of thing. So I think that, and again, it sounds like I've said this before, so I might have said it here. Where funds go to the consolidated fund, and no, this may be in another forum. Where funds go to the consolidated fund, you can identify um, uses for them, because in terms of you see so let's say, for example, let's go back to the sewage, that sewage levy that we have at the water authority. um, Significant, I think Kimar might have mentioned like $50 million in some reporting periods. I don't remember if it's how much it
80
is.
million a month. 80
80,
million a month.
80,
How much?
80,
80
80.
Yeah.
80 million a month. Now, 80 million by 12 will tell you that's 12 8 and 96. Now, 960 million, almost $1 billion a year. Now, how is that accounted for? What is the budget of the Sanitation Service Authority? And how much, because you can look back at the estimates and look and ask how much money has been allocated to the Sanitation Service Authority prior to that from the consolidated fund, and I can bet you it was probably less than a third of that money collected on an annual basis. So if that is the case, there is significant money out there outside of the control of the normal controls that exist, the checks and balances that Caswell spoke about. And the question, therefore, how is that money being used? And it's made worse by the fact that the services provided by the agency, which is intended to receive and utilize that money, seem to be lapsing and getting,
Correct.
and deteriorating. So you don't know how much money is collected. Well, we've heard reports given. I think it would have been by one of the consultants, Dr. Clive Maskell, I believe, might be one of the people who shared a figure, or maybe the Minister of Finance in the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Strong, or some such person. But we hear about that, but there's no reporting. Where does that money go? Where does it sit? Who controls transfers to Sanitation Service Authority? When do these transfers take place? On what basis do you agree that X amount of money is transferred, or is it automatically transferred? Then Is it controlled by the board? So you see, all of those things lead to a muddying of the financial water, so to speak. And
Maxine, you ain't hear what happened? The German Water Authority claimed that he didn't send over my sanitation because he had to use it for something in Water Authority. You hear that? You and I call
no, you
that
see, no,
misappropriation of public funds. Because
no, this. I laugh, but it's a very serious matter. It is a very serious matter because okay, he had to use it. How did he use it? Where did he use it? It
it
is it
wasn't
is
his
it,
to use.
He said
It
that
wasn't his to
government
use.
was taking too long to send over the subvention, so he used it in the meantime for operational expenses.
It wasn't his to use.
no, it
That
was
is called
not. And
embezzlement. And anywhere else that is called embezzlement. Or
my
at least
question is,
misdirecting
was he acting on the instruction? I mean, I understand the error, the issue as explained by you, but I raise another question because I want to know if I have to join somebody else onto him and to be held responsible for the thing. Was the general manager instructed by the chairman of the board? Was the chairman or chairperson of the board instructed by the minister of finance or by the minister responsible for the Barbados Water Authority, or did he act unilaterally without consultation or anything? These are the kinds of things, But
Two
in
two
my,
boards
in my
resigned. I said two boards resigned from the water authority,
I remember.
back to back, and the excuse given was that the same companies were getting the contracts over and over again, corruption, and they had to step down and resign.
Well,
uh,
yes,
he might have consulted with the consultant truck driver.
well, in that case, that person knows very little, as far as I understand, about matters of finance and accounting.
Yeah. He knows
Um,
little
but then
Maxine. So
again,
you just
you
stop
might
there
shift
and say,
gears and develop certain skills overnight. A
no, no,
skill
no.
of
You
saying
said
that's
he
okay,
knows
go ahead.
little. He knows little of finance. You think you don't have to go all the way to finance. You could just stop at little.
No, but you see,
Oh Lord.
Marcia, if you don't laugh, it really, because you see, as I listen to this, right, we're talking about problems in accounting for financial resources. But we're doing that at a time when, in fact, on the one hand, there seems to be a tremendous waste of resources, or a tremendous, how should I put it, vacuum in terms of information sharing as to how these resources are managed. And
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, we have engaged on significant borrowing of foreign exchange,
Mm.
and we are boasting about that, and it sounds good. But I go back to the question: in the short, medium, and long term, as we engage in this kind of very lax financial management behavior, and we alongside of that, we have been borrowing significant amounts of foreign exchange. We are not seeing the sectors that will generate the revenues. Foreign exchange. Now I'm talking foreign exchange because I understand this in local debt are talking about now.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, there's one major sector which accounts for the foreign exchange earnings of the country, and that is tourism. And I happen to be listening recently to some exchanges, predictions, some information sharing from the officials in tourism. And from what I'm hearing, and in the absence of any statistics, and if I'm wrong, Kimar, your ears and eyes are probably more fixed on these things, but has anybody had in the last 6 months, 12 months, any concrete information on the net foreign exchange earnings of the tourism sector? any kind of information, net or gross or whatever, of earnings in foreign exchange from tourism. And
Well,
we hear
what I could
the
tell
right.
you,
Go ahead.
right, what I could tell you on that specifically is that um, the net earnings dropped around to like 200 and something $1 million. That was from a billion and some. So the major problem here now is the current account deficit, which is the foreign
Wait, slow
exchange
down, slow
earnings
down,
take
slow
away.
down, slow down, slow down. So you're saying something dropped by two? You use a 200
Right.
something million. Explain that again for me. So, uh-huh.
The earnings from travel. If you look at
Mm-hmm,
the central bank report, it has a
mm-hmm,
column in there saying travel earnings.
mm-hmm.
So the travel income is what they use to measure or what brings in most of the tourism revenue.
Okay.
So I dropped from $1 billion+ to 200 and some plus $1 billion since COVID. So it has been like that since 2020.
So at 200 or something, from a billion to 200 or by 200, it's dropped to 200 million.
200 and some million.
So you're 200 and some million.
Million.
So instead of 1,000 million, that's what billion is, right?
Yeah,
No, I
yeah,
just, so in essence, what we're saying that it has dropped by is only about one fifth of what it used to be. That's what you're saying. No, no. The
yes.
reason the reason I'm saying this, Marcy, is that we have not been hearing that. And my
Right.
worry is that we have forget the new borrowing for now. We also have other, well, not forget it, but add into the borrowing. And although we might have had moratoria telling us that we don't have to start repaying, oftentimes you may not be repaying principal, but you may be repaying interest and so on. We
Mm-hmm.
have to generate foreign exchange to be able to service the debt that we have. And my worry is that so far, unlike most of our CARICOM neighbors, our tourism sector has not reached or returned to the kind of levels pre-COVID, etc. I mean, you look at what's happening in Jamaica, you look at what's happening in Grenada, to whom we've lost one of our tourism stars,
Always.
I would call her, hard worker for many years. And so my worry is that we are not seeing the kind of activity that will allow us to earn. Um, and it is not typical. The other thing I would raise, and I wanted to raise, is because all of these things tie in when we start to talk about wastage, especially in the face of declining earnings, etc. And it is something I was speaking to uh, someone in the past few days who traveled to for the first time to another Caribbean country. And my first comment to her was, because I was singing the praises of this country, I had not been there for a while, but I was asking the question, what was the experience? And my relative responded, Barbados has to up its game. And then I got into a discussion as
Which country is this? Can you say the country?
um, I would prefer not, because it will
All right.
identify my relative,
Okay,
and
no
it's
problem.
Barbados. All right.
Mm-hmm.
But but the reality was accommodation. First of all, from the time we arrived at the airport, the person was very impressed with the quality of service, the accommodate, the whole 9 yards, the accommodation, the service, and you know, in restaurants, the just the look and feel of the place. And that for me is something that I also experienced. I went on a Caribbean cruise a few months ago, and I touched on about seven, I think about seven countries, including Barbados. Um, and because I was involved in the cruise industry for almost, um, I would say about 50, about almost 15 years or so, 15 years. Um, and well, I think about 15 years, let's say. And when I start, so I'm looking at the destinations as as somebody involved. And for the most part, I'm saying, I would use the expression that my relative used, we got to up our game. So we need to so my question is, if these things are falling off, And we have all of this money. Yes, we have foreign reserves, borrowed money, not earned. Um, how well are we preparing ourselves to be able to service that debt? If the very sector, I mean, the main sector, because it shouldn't be the only one, but right now it is the primary one, is not, up to to its best. Is not, you're not generating. I mean, the number that Kimar shared just now wants me now to go back and see what has happened in the last, since 2020. What happened in 2020? We know the extreme situation. What happened in 21? What happened in 22? What's happened in 23? And how are we preparing for? We are into the almost the end of September now, and we are preparing for the start of the next tourism season, beginning, of course, with the cruise industry. Cruise ships coming back. How are we preparing for these things, and what are the projections?
Yeah.
I saw something. I think I sent it to you, Marcy, and I can say this and stop, because one of the things that I like to do, I mean, as I said, because I've had an interest in the industry, is to look at the marketing, and as a person who taught marketing, to look at the marketing campaigns and so on. And I saw a slogan that I hope is not real, because I mean, I ran it by a couple of young people, including one of my nieces. And I'm gonna see if I can find it here. I don't.
I'm gonna try to get it up. I'm gonna see if
Okay, because I sent it to you, and
yeah,
maybe Caswell can give me a reaction to when
yeah,
he.
I'm gonna. I thought I sent it to Caswell already, but let me send it to my technical person and see if they can put it up.
What,
Um,
let me explain to the people what it's a visual that somebody sent me, and it was a bus in London. So I presume that the person who sent it to me is not a person prone to sending, at least having a sense of the sources of what it is that he sent me. um and I had to say, if that's the best that we can do, we really have a problem. But I'm
and
trying to
and
find.
and you and we're raising this in light of the fact
Oh
that
yeah,
yeah,
well,
we're
I'm
right
raising it
now.
because all of this
Yeah,
is what, if you can enlarge it, Marcy, I think is there. But
yeah.
and this is supposed to be okay. It says we don't mention the B word unless it is followed by Barbados. Now we know the B word.
Well,
So I want to know if this is true, or if somebody wait for to shop this thing. Now this, as you can see, is a double-decker bus. The building looks like a British building. The markings in the road look familiar as well. And it says we don't mention the quote unquote B word unless it's followed by quote Barbados. Now I raised that because we're trying to get visitors to come. I don't know if that would get you to Barbados if you were living in London, Casper. What's your reaction to that? First of all, so let me put a disclaimer. I am still trying to verify that this is real. But as I said, based on my source, I'm just concerned that when I compare that with some of the stuff that I'm seeing coming, and I don't, that's a bad word. I used to tell my students, don't use the word stuff. Some of the commercials and things coming out of
The
the rest of the
taglines.
Caribbean and the rest of the world, where is that going to get folks to come to Barbados? Help me.
And seeing the financial state that the country is in at the moment, and all of this wastage of money, I know you guys were laughing, but I tell you, when I saw that the Auditor General's report, I couldn't laugh, to be honest with you. I couldn't laugh because it is sad. It is sad. And then looking at the, as well.
I am never at a loss for words, but this time I am. Good there. It says you don't use the B word. I wonder if they pay $75,000 for this too.
750.
$750,000 for this too. You know,
but I mean,
this is more work, so it might be more expensive.
no, this was probably thrown in with the other thing. I don't know. I'm laughing because if I don't laugh, I
But
mean,
you know what? Kimar is younger than we are. Kimar, if this was real, what are your thoughts about this? Is it that it is? Do you think this is something catchy, or are they trying to reach a target a
This
different
is not
market?
catchy.
Probably. Let me hear from Kimar. No, we Kimar could be our son. So let's hear from Kimar because we probably old folks, you know. So let's hear from Kimar. Their thoughts
Wait,
about
wait.
this.
I would just want to know what's the B word. So as a Bajan, if somebody call you a B, you know your problems. You know your
Unless
problems.
the barbers, the parties call themselves bees.
You know, but you know, we're having a laugh, but at least I can laugh. But today I found myself a little sad, and I was praying for Barbados because it seems like something is drastically wrong, drastically wrong. I don't know who they get to come up with these things, and this is so trashy to me. It's just so. Mm, it's corny.
Don't
Yeah, you're
worry.
right. It's corny. I don't know. It's corny.
Uh, today I was in the car and I heard them advertising something about Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, and it says little bite, big infection or something. So big, so they get them. They not got imagination, you know. Uh,
Marcia, I wanted to respond here to expound on some of what might seem, some of the questions might seem with the asked about. Because she
Yes.
raised some very interesting points that the explaining will give the opposition here a better understanding. So we had, just to go back a bit to the SOE aspect, we had Dr. Kevin Greenwich, who was the front man on all things economics, right?
he
He was
he
the
was
senior technical advisor to government.
Doctor Wall. He
And
won't make a good nurse.
yeah, he was out there, he was saying some things in the news that had Barbadians very, I mean, scratching your head because he was very optimistic. He was painting the best future for the government. He was saying that they're meeting the IMF targets. His outlooks were very optimistic. I still you had professors like Don Marshall. You had professors like Michael Howard. You even had Edward Clark, the former chairman of the Private Sector Association. And you even had the no Dr. Simon Nitram, who was the president of the Economic Society, speaking out and challenging these optimistic outlooks provided by the government.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dr. Nitram issued a challenge to the government where they said that the economy is set to grow by X 50%, and Dr. Nitram asked exactly which sector was this growth going to come from. And that was the last article I heard coming up from him, directly challenging the government. And then it was announced that Dr. Nitram now will be on the board of the Central Bank of Barbados, and he was still the president of the Economic Society. And then Dr. Nitram went on to be employed at the IMF, right? So
So that
after that,
article application.
Repeat,
No, I
right,
said,
please.
the article was actually an application.
yeah,
Well, well, we might all be getting position soon. Once you criticize, you get. Once you oppose, once you're being a good opposition. You know what? They may be offering all 419 persons on here jobs. Miss
I,
McLean, your mic
yeah.
is muted.
I refuse mine.
no,
I have
I was
refused mine. Car.
sorry. I was just saying that Dr. Natrum is getting some international experience, so I would give him a pass. But it's an interesting process that happens because, well,
Yeah, I know. I agree with him.
But I think at the end of the day, what we really want to be able to have is a situation in the country, and this is very serious now. What we want to have is a situation where people can bring a dispassionate perspective and analysis to issues. People like to label and you use the term opposition, and that's why you're seeking to analyze and help people to flesh out issues as they arise. Um, a young person who takes on a position of head of a professional body should feel comfortable using his or her professional experience and knowledge to dissect and analyze issues and present the information. In a situation where, as we can expect with anything, all information may not be positive, and it certainly will not be flattering for some people. So be it. That is what it is. Let us deal with it. If the person's analysis is inaccurate, come and bring accurate information. But the whole notion of silence, that's a dangerous thing, especially in a situation where we have um, a totally the government controls all the seats that you have. And there should be no fear of the public, whether in their individual capacities or as part of professional bodies, standing up or sitting down and saying, let us focus on these issues. I mean, and I would take the opportunity to thank you all again. Evening after evening, you come here ignoring some of the criticism and petty sniping and that kind of thing. Because I tell people, I come from a tradition. If I don't have to look no further than my brother. My brother went to his grave defending Barbadians, and he was the one voice when they were creating the the body that regulates utilities. What's the name of it? No,
Fair Trading Commission.
huh?
He used to do on the Public Utilities Board and other changes.
And it was when Ronald Toppin was minister. I remember distinctly, and it was the Fair Trading Commission. That was what it was when they were creating it. And the last time Randall McLean drove his car was to one of those meetings. And the point I'm making is that some of us have taken on the responsibility of speaking on issues. And we will speak on them because we sit down and we don't just talk from the top of our head, we do analysis. Caswell can't come and talk to you about the Constitution. I am amazed the amount of time that Kimar is able to dissect, at the time it will take to dissect a lot of the issues and to pull all that information together. Because unfortunately, we have a situation where the average Barbadian now is into soundbite conversations. There's
Correct.
a story and they take a thing, they don't analyze it, they don't think about it critically, and it is repeated. And when you start to dissect it, they say, well, we don't like to read, we don't like to do this and whatever. But it is important that we pay some attention to what is going on, and that some people be brave enough to come and say, look, we need to dissect this. So I say thank you. And as long as I can, I will do it, Marcia, because I
Yeah.
think it's important.
I'm holding this flag here, Caswell, and this is why we do it. There's nobody paying anybody on here, okay? Because they very well will soon say it is being sponsored by a political party and all kinds of things. We do it.
Really?
We do it because of this. This is why we do it here, because of the country Barbados, and we don't. And that's why I said I was sad today. I was sad. I said, this is not the country I came to 20, how many years? 23 years ago. This is not the same country. Disappointed, disappointed to see other countries are gone way ahead of us in terms of tourism. When we have such natural beauty here, going to Trinidad and seeing how difficult, how easy it is. I mean, just my garbage, the garbage, how office being picked up. I mean, all the social services, the QEH, they're now saying that, do you hear that? That they can't take everybody, you know what, try and go down to the polyclinic, and if you can't get there, go private for the same people that already pay taxes and so on. So it is sad.
Marcia, I
It's a
stick a pin
sad
there.
day.
I
It's a
want,
sad
I
day.
want, I want to speak about that hospital because it is something that
What,
bothers
what,
me.
what, before you go on to the
Mhm.
hospital, though, I know Mr. Franklin was saying something to a point
Okay.
that you made, and then we're gonna
No,
let's deal with the hospital afterwards.
no, when Maxine mentioned mainly constitution just now, there's something I wanted to say earlier, and it just come back in my mind. You remember we were talking about the Emergency Management Act, and they said then that it was not constitutional because the Constitution already spoke to how you will deal with emergencies.
Mm-hmm.
And that Emergency Management Act, if you look at it, and I have it in front of me, it says enacted by the Parliament of Barbados as follows. Max, you well know that if it amends the Constitution, it must say enacted by the Parliament of Barbados in accordance with the provisions of Section 49 of the Constitution. So this act did not amend the Constitution. So everything that they did under this act that floated the Constitution, they broke every rule and they continue to break it and they're justifying it. You know, talking about COVID. COVID was not an excuse for breaking the law. But I want to talk, but let's go on to that the other things first because I want to ask about certain other things that I didn't see in the reports yet. Because the Prime Minister, she has the largest set of consultants and officers around her than she has more officers around her now than all the other prime ministers put together. A whole bunch of consultants and things. She has traveled more in a month, in 2 months, than Frandl travel thing in all his time as prime minister. And we are not seeing anything for it, and we're not seeing it being accounted for. I'm seeing her on private jets. Is she getting that private jet for free? And if so, what is the person that is giving her the private jet flight getting in return? Prime ministers should travel by normal airlines so that there's no hint of corruption in what she is doing. She got off the airplane in Cuba. It was a private plane, as far as I can see, right? Then she carried a whole bunch of people with her. How is that money accounted for? But you know what the Auditor General can't get there? They ain't got enough staff because the Prime Minister spends money, our money, like it going out of style. She spends money like a drunken sailor. It is not as for instance, the Prime Minister is not the best dresser in the world, and she had Jessica Odell paying her $8,500 a month, but to dress up the Prime Minister. I think she got the Prime Minister dressed once. After that, the Prime Minister back to her old self again, not combing her hair, not doing anything, walking about the place. And so Jessica had nothing to do, and the time I get Jessica another job talking protocol from 8,000 out to 12,005. And so and who hired her? Because if she was hired, she has to be hired by the Public Service Commission, not Public Service Commission anymore. They call it the Administrative General and Professional Service Commission. Was that job advertised, and did she compete with anybody for that job? Because the Public Service Act says that it must be done in the and I ain't even go check far in the act. It's Section 3 that says that this act applies to public officers and temporary employees. But she's not a public officer; she's a temporary employee in government service. The Prime Minister was allowed certain personal staff, personal assistant, and press secretary, that kind of stuff. That was catered for by resolution in Parliament. Maxine, you can bear me out.
Yes, that is very true.
What is the resolution to hire all of these people that these people are getting paid from? No. I tell she's spending money like a drunken sailor. I have not seen the resolution. They don't publish them in the official gazette anymore. So even if they did make one, I ain't seeing it. So what is happening? What is happening to all that money? How much money these people are being paid? We have the director of communications, I think it was. He is being paid above the public service salary scale. The guy from St. Kitts, who ran the Barbados Party,
Young or
John,
Young.
or something like that. This is a public service post. How are you getting it? Did he go before the commission? Did the commission interview him? No.
Is that
All
the
that,
Chinese or the Asian guy?
yeah, it's
There's
a,
an
Jiang
it's a,
or
Asian.
it's a, it's
Jiang,
a
Jiang
song.
or Jiang, something like
Young
that.
or young,
And,
young.
what is his role? What is the role that he
The,
plays?
from what I could see, he morphed into a public officer and from a political campaign advisor,
Consultant.
probably communications or media person for the Barbados Day Party. What I, as Caswell was talking, I recognized that there's, for example, I call it a parallel GIS.
Yes.
As Caswell said, traditionally, the prime minister of the country was given a political staff. And my recollection was that in the case of the former Prime Minister Stewart, there were, I think, three or four persons working out of that office. In this case, now we have a what I call a parallel GIS. There's some unit where I think she's Senator Paris was in it at some point in time. Um, Let me just connect my computer here. It says battery running low. I don't want to lose you. Okay, fine. We had
Okay, she's dropping out.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
but
go
till she
go.
comes back,
Yeah,
I
jump in,
wanna
Timmy.
yeah. Right. So I was saying before about Dr. Natrum, right? Being working at the IMF now. Um, I just want to remind Barbadians that the IMF started to do their reviews on Barbados from around 2019. Right. So when they first came here, Mia Motley said that the government was seeking to borrow 600 million Barbados dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that they were entitled to benefit from a drawdown of $100 million, right? And she
Mm-hmm.
also said that, however, there are certain requirements that the country had to meet in order to make subsequent drawdowns, right? And the targets that Barbados had to meet included improving the physical deficit. That's really what the government makes via what they spend, and the difference between the two. Uh, the primary balance, well, that part includes interest payments as well. And the primary balance is the same thing, but excluding the interest payment, right? So they had to fix the debts. And lastly, what she said that they had to fix transfers to state-owned enterprises, right? So they say that as the government seeks to cut expenditure, state-owned enterprises may face restructuring, mergers, and job cuts over the next couple of years. And the big economic theme that the government has uh, outlined that the program will be looking to reduce the heavy burden that SOEs were placing on the government's purse. And Kevin Greenwich, who was the IMF employee, stated that in the first phase of the BERT plan, over an 18-month period, the SOEs will undergo a transformation via retooling, retraining, and enfranchisement. But then turned around in the next breath and said that 1,000 workers from the public service had to go home. Right?
That's something I want to
He
talk about
also
tonight.
pointed out.
No, that's what I
He
want to talk
also
about.
pointed out that yeah, we get on that soon. He also said that there were several mergers and consolidations happening within government. So again, CBC and the GIS and the government printery were supposed to be merged. We spoke about Charles John, but we forget that the government established a public affairs department doing the same exact thing that these three departments do.
yes, and that.
There was the Garfield Sobers Gymnasium and the National Sports Council and the National Industries for the Cultural Industry Development Authority and the National Cultural Foundation. They were supposed to be merged. They made mention of Transport Board and said that the target was to reduce the bill to Transport Board by $123 million, right? Which could be done through increasing bus fares, right? They also spoke about sanitation and
Mm.
said that they were looking at giving the workers at sanitation their own trucks, and they were looking to give the persons at Transport Board their own buses so that they could perform the services to the government. The water authority, they said that the true cost of running that is somewhere in $120 million, and the government is seeking to save at least $60 million from that by making whatever cuts. And they touched on rural and urban and national housing and said that they were doing the same thing and that they could be merged as well. And he said by the end of March 2019, at least 15 government institutions would have been restructured under the Burt plan, and that there will be 20 more to follow. So he said to Ms. Carol Roberts, while he was being interviewed on the CMJS page, that they were working hand in hand with the IMF, and that the IMF will give us access to the $200 million, 290 million US dollars over the next 4 years once we continue to implement the restructuring to the SOE. And then he touched on the point that I really wanted to get on, which Maxine spoke about, which was the foreign reserves, right? He touched on the foreign reserves and how the government was increasing or had a plan to increase these quote-unquote foreign reserves, right? Now, you would hear Kevin Greenwich often saying that they came in and that the government only had like 200 and some million US in reserves left, and after a year, the Burt plan they increased the reserves to 1 point some billion. But all of that was just borrowed, drawdown money from the IMF. And once we developed the relationship with the IMF, then that gave us access to the World Bank, that gave us access to the IADB, that gave us access to the European Bank for Reconstruction, and all of the somebody's phone. Yeah. That gave us access to these different banks, right? But what the government then say is that they cause us to be banned from international credit markets by defaulting on the debt. And that's why the IMF was our only option for borrowing. Because in the financial world, when you default on debt, there's severe penalties to carry, especially for a country. Hence why the former governor of our central bank had to defend the international creditors against the government of Barbados from running roughshod over them in the arrangements to restructure the international debt. So the reserve.
Sorry, go ahead.
Right. So the reserves that they would have spoken about, and Maxime made the point about the travel earnings. Dr. Justin Robinson wrote an article in The Nation, and he said that the deficit of foreign exchange was $1 billion in 2020, which means that the difference between the foreign exchange earnings and the foreign exchange losses was stretching to $1 billion. Right? And that was happening since 2020. So this is now 2023. So close to 3 financial years, the government lost $1 billion in foreign exchange every year and has had to borrow debt from the IMF to fill that hole. Right?
I tell you.
When you say lost $1 billion in foreign exchange,
well, let me change my language, not lost. If the government, as I said, the government, I'm going to quote it here directly from the Arsenal. Having high reserves is important. However, what the government was doing was borrowing reserves in an attempt to pay down foreign exchange bills. But it never really cured Barbados. Barbados's problem really is the difference or the deficit between foreign exchange leaving the island and foreign exchange entering the island.
Okay.
And the main cause of the widening gap and the depletion of foreign exchange. Right. So the difference between what's causing the gap to widen is that fuel imports were going up from the war in Ukraine because we are very fuel dependent. So the fuel prices were going up. On top of the fact that the merchants were using more foreign exchange than usual too. Right? So that deficit being $1 billion if you continue to have a holy size of a deficit and the foreign exchange, say every year, 3 years, you have that $3 billion that we went down, you gotta go and borrow that money from somewhere. And that's why every year the government will say, well, we're gonna borrow this amount from the IMF and that amount. Ain't that the money coming into the country? The
Right.
money is going straight to the central bank and is being kept on government books just in case a foreign debt may come up, that they can go and use that money to be able to pay that debt. But when you use that money from the central bank, now you have to go and repay it to the IMF. And as me a monthly rate to Congress in the United States and say that the labor rate has impacted the government, and now we have to pay back 400% more
Mm.
in debt
To the
repayment
lower.
Right.
to the IMF and the World Bank and the like,
So
right?
those low rates
So
weren't as
yeah,
low as they were projected. In other words, it's going to cost us significantly more. But
They didn't
Marcy,
put fine
I
print.
just want to go over the point there that Kimar made in relation to the gap between what we spend on imports,
Mm-hmm.
money, foreign exchange leaving, and foreign exchange earned. Because we have two situations here. One, there's a growing demand for imported goods, right? And we also have merchants, money leaving the country. I mean, beyond the individual consumer wanting to buy imported food and clothes and whatever else. Um, so the foreign exchange that we earn have to finance that. And it also has to finance foreign debt repayment. So that gap that Kimar is talking about is made even wider because if you're not earning, and I
Right.
want to say this within the context because I don't know that we made the point enough. And I remember asking senior banking official who reminded me that she was one of my former students, and it's interesting to know that. But when in the midst of all of this, when they were talking about low foreign reserves, because one thing I want people to understand, low foreign reserves or foreign reserves held by the central bank does not include commercial banks. Let me put it in a positive way. Commercial banks in their normal transactions also have foreign exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And and as Kimar said, sometimes you may have to pay a debt or whatever. And the question is, on a day-to-day basis, and this is something the commercial banks can tell us, and we can, and if they would share the statistics for the last 20, 25 years, we'll be interested. On a day-to-day basis, how easy or otherwise is it for a commercial bank to meet the demands for foreign exchange, whether to for locals going on holiday, importers, looking to pay their bills for what they're importing, foreign companies transferring dividends back to their head offices or whatever. So banks have to do those transactions. It is when the banks do not have foreign exchange that they will also go to the central bank. And I
Correct.
remember in sitting in a meeting with these social partners, asking a banker directly in relation to what was happening in the country when people were talking about the low levels. I mean, the current prime minister was talking about this and whatever else. I asked the banker, have how often have you had to resort to the central bank to support your foreign exchange requirements? And the answer was very little, and I mean, I would have to go back to my notes to see the specific, because I'm, as you know, I'm a habitual note taker, so I write these things down.
Mm-hmm.
But the point I'm making is that sometimes what we are seeing is a partial picture when we hear about these high reserves, etc., and contrast them with low reserves. The important thing that the Democratic Labour Party sought to do was to make sure that the foreign reserves that we had were earned by this country, by the sectors in this country. So, in other words, if you had $200 million, that by and large would have been foreign exchange earned and staying here, not borrowed, because the bulk of the borrowing was domestic borrowing. So, if you are earning it, it is yours to have, and there is no cost to holding it. If you earn that, if you borrow foreign exchange, there is a cost because you're going to have to service the debt. And my worry is that in borrowing, we keep hearing about. and I used the word earlier, we have a moratorium, so we don't start repaying until 2030 or whenever. But at the end of the day, there are costs associated, interest charges, etc. And then there is a schedule. So you're having this. So we are borrowing money, and at the end of the day, we have to pay it back. But I want to focus quickly, if I can, on another issue about this whole borrowing business and the capacity to utilize borrowed funds. I remember when the Democratic Labour Party came into office, there were some IDB loans which had been borrowed by the previous administration. I think they were related to low income housing and so on. All the commitment fees and so on were being incurred. But to put it very basically, having borrowed the money, the capacity to utilize that money in a timely manner to do the projects was not there. So you had money that you had committed to borrowing. You were paying the financial institution, in this case, the IDB commitment fees, etc. But the systems were not in place to utilize it. And I ask this question now in relation to the construction of the roads in the north, because I believe that the government of Barbados would have borrowed about almost, was it 150 something million US dollars? It is. I had the number written down somewhere for the projects in St. Andrew and so on, that road construction infrastructure funds. That's what it is. And my question is, this is money from the Chinese. In,
Okay.
in borrowing the money, what exactly are the terms and conditions in terms of disbursement of that money and utilizing of it? Because at the end of the day, we are hearing about delays in the work that is supposed to have been financed. I think there was a speech given by the Prime Minister where she identified there were 80 plus roads or something to be fixed and so on. And that was almost 2 years ago. And so the question is, having borrowed that money, and it's a significant sum given the fact that we are doing roads and we have to find other means of earning to pay that back. Having borrowed that, how far have we gotten in using it and achieving the objectives that we had? So I think that I'm raising that because when we look at all of these things, we have to look and ask ourselves, to what extent is the government being efficient and effective in the borrowing of money, two, the utilizing of that money in a timely manner and in relation to the projects and delivering the results. Three, in facilitating the kind of business and what I would call commercial activity to ensure that our people are working, the government is getting the level of taxes, we are earning the level of foreign exchange, all the things that come together to give government the resources to service those loans. Because if we talk about foreign reserve levels, that sounds good, no problem. We have 30 weeks, 30 months, whatever you want it, what it is. But if it is 30 months of borrowed money, the
Then
more it's
what's
going
the
to cost
point?
us.
That
You
what's the
know,
point?
if
Yeah,
we are
yeah.
not investing, in this case, in our young people to create jobs, to keep them employed and not in minimum wages, but in ways that we can tap, tap into the innovativeness, the creativity of our young people and keep them employed, whether in self-employment, whether they're working, in traditional kind of employment relations and some, but are able to pay national insurance, able to finance their desires to own a piece of land or to support their parents, whatever the case may be. If we are not creating those opportunities, then government's revenues are going to continue to fall.
Yeah,
There will be a greater demand for welfare services. So I like to look at these things holistically, and we're
yeah,
not getting that holistic analysis from the government, because in all of this, as a parent of a young adult, the question is, how are we working to either employ these young people or assist them in creating employment for themselves? And that is something, and I hope that perhaps we can get a chance to hear what is happening and maybe talk about some suggestions too, so that young people can see that there's some hope. But my worry is that part of the equation is not being addressed. And if that is not being addressed, then on the other side, where when the time comes to settle debts, we in duck's guts.
Yeah. Oh my goodness! I
Eight
tell you, like somebody
800
said,
and
yeah, on here said they're feeling a little sad. Quickly, Kimar, because I know Caswell had something that he wanted
yeah,
to say. Go ahead, Kimar.
yeah. Right. I would just adding on a final point on the Maxine's contribution to say that Kevin Greenwich said that we have to repay $827 million to the IMF by 2027, and Michael Howard said that that's unrealistic, but he seems to think that is realistic. So it proves the point that Maxime, if you don't earn anything, you just borrow to top up the reserves. Close to $1 billion of that reserves is gonna be gone just by debt payments alone, right? So the money is not going to any substantial industrial growth. It's not going to anything that could earn you money, right? So you burn it, you leaving the money there, and then the government then is seeking to make cuts in
Right.
alignment with the IMF program. So they're not seeking to grow out Barbados, but this if the government said well, we're making $200 million in adjustment, it is not $200 million of new revenue. It is $200 million in expenditure cuts from the already existing government, the already existing public service, the transfers to government, along with new debt for the government and whatever new taxation measures that they're going to implement, that will account for a very minuscule part of the new revenue, but most of the space that the government is getting is coming from expenditure cuts in government. So it's going to get worse as time move on, and as the stringencies that the IMF started locking, the government will have to make more cuts in almost every ministry there is right now in government.
If
Yeah.
there's no growth. Caswell, maybe you can answer Ursula's question before you make the point
Yeah.
that you,
Yeah.
Well, those
because you
senators
were
get
a senator more
those
recently.
oil, gas, electricity, in addition to the senators in Trinidad,
Not Barbados.
not Barbados. You know, if you are a senator and you are a minister, you got a minister's pay. Okay?
Other than
If you're
that,
a parliamentary secretary, you get a parliamentary secretary's pay. All other senators get $1,500 a month. Full stop. No allowance, no nothing. That's $1,500 a month. It used to be 14, so my money was there, but about by 3%, so 15 now. So it used to be doing a lot of work was for $1,500, you know.
and not a week, a month.
A month. Yeah. Yeah. A maid in the public service got more money than me. You know?
But I know you had something
thought
pressing that you wanted to talk about. So
Yeah.
jump in because we have 90 minutes left.
Yeah.
And then Miss McLean, they want Miss McLean to talk about the hospital. So so go ahead, please.
All right. Just recently, last week actually, the staff at BRA were informed that they will now be paying 11.1% on their income national insurance, up from 9.8%. And they were surprised by it. The reason why that is so, and this is why I wanted to talk about the layoffs, because in 2018, when government was proposing to lay off certain people, I was in the Senate then, and I pointed out to them that you can't lay off these appointed people in the public service because there is no national insurance, unemployment benefits for them, there's no severance pay. And the only money you would have to they will get is their pension when they reach 60. So government, rather than heed my warning, decided that it's going to make those public officers pay the full national insurance. And why that doesn't make sense. Public officers who are appointed in the public service or at statutory boards would pay 9.8% of their insurable earnings and your insurable earnings, the maximum insurable earnings is $5,120 per month. So if you earn more than that, you only pay on the first $5,120. National insurance don't insure more right now. And people in the private sector, they'll pay 11.1%. Now, and there was a reason for that. Barrow was not a madman. The right excellent Barrow was not a madman. He knew what he was doing. Because in the public service, there was a provision that preceded Barrow's time that appointed public officers would be entitled to up to a year's sick leave on full pay. So it wouldn't make sense then when he brought national insurance in force in 1967. He passed in 1966, but it came into force in 1967. When it came into force, those people who were entitled to a year's full pay from the government would then also be entitled to a year's pay at 66 to 30% from national insurance if they were contributing toward the national insurance sickness benefits. So he excluded them from getting national insurance benefits because they were getting more money for as an appointed public officer for sick leave. You will get your full salary. That was there before Barrow started. It is a condition of your employment. The people at BRA in particular know, when they went over from the legacy departments, as they call them, land tax, licensing authority, or whoever else they had, they were told in the legislation that they will be treated no less favorably than they were treated when they were in the public service. So then they were entitled also to get that year's sick leave on full pay. Now the government is making them pay for sick leave and unemployment benefits, but they can't get it from national insurance because they're already getting full pay from the government. So we ask them to pay because government now also is not supposed to lay off permanent workers, appointed workers. But if you're making these permanent workers pay for unemployment benefits, it seems as though you are looking to make some of them redundant. That is why you put those people in the public service and making them pay private sector contributions to the national insurance thing. Mind you, the government, I made noise about it, but nobody followed me. The only trade unionists in Barbados that complained about it then was a fellow called Caswell Franklin. All the others said nothing, but now we got one speaking up because they never set the memo to BRA. So BRA didn't know since 2019 that they were supposed to be taking out this 11.1%. They never got the memo. They got it last week.
So what do? They have to go retroactive?
No. What should happen is government, according to the National Insurance Act, if you don't pay the money when it's due, you are entitled for both pieces, the employee and the employer. So, but the government can pay. You know them too. But they should be paying back pay. But my biggest problem is that why make them pay? Are you going out to change their conditions of service to their detriment and say no, that since you're paying for national insurance, you're no longer going to get full pay, you can get 66 to 30%. And then you got to wait for the processing at national insurance when that happens. Because sometimes you know national insurance is not as strong as we would like it. So if you have bills and certain commitments and you got to sit down and wait on national insurance, that is not going to work for you. But this government is doing all of these things. And what troubles me, today in the newspaper, I saw the General Secretary of NUPW saying that they're in the dark about these changes. Let me see. It was on page 5. NUPW in the dark about transitions, and he mentioned national insurance. Now that is strange for me, simply because the general secretaries of both NUPW and BW have permanent seats on the National Insurance Board. They don't get
Right.
changed. So from inception of the National Insurance Board,
BW.
NUPW and BW had seats on the board.
That's right.
He is now saying that they're in the dark about these changes. He
So
says
they
we
know
are
about the board meetings?
transitions. He says we are hearing about transitions at the National Insurance Scheme as well as an amalgamation of the social services. Now, Kadir, he's on the board. When
He
the board
doesn't
was
go to
discussing this,
meetings.
when
You
the board
must
was
miss
discussing
them.
this, was he asleep? It would have to be asleep. And really strong asleep too. I would have got up and left and said the woman lay sleeping the whole night. Because he had been sleeping very strong.
And to think he's there to represent the workers.
Workers,
That's
yes.
why he's there.
But worse yet, he is also on the board of BRA.
That's right.
So what is happening here? These things going through without the union knowing. Billy Johnson actually saying on there, Lord help us. What is happening to the and when we have issues like this, where the union leaders are so compromised that they can't tell the government war. If this was the financial administration, they would be on the streets with the white people. Martin.
Listen, that's why I'm saying to people that, don't wait. And I hear Lynette say this all the time, by the way. Lynette hasn't been here because of her schedule. She started back teaching, and so it is tough for her to be here. But she was just messaging me saying that as soon as her schedule settles down, she'll be back here. For those of you who are asking for Lynette, but she was saying that why do Barbadians believe that they have to wait on the unions to march? This is your country. This is our country. We don't need to wait on the unions. We're smart enough to know that the unions that they are bought out or they're on boards that they either don't attend meetings or they're not clued into what is going on. Look at what Mr. Franklin just talked about. So we can't wait on them, Barbadians. We can't wait on them. The 30th is coming. We're going back out there, We're going back out there. We are going back on the street on the 30th. That is March number 5.
I'll
You
tell you something.
understand?
I'll tell you something. There is a piece of legislation called the Taxes, Duties, and Other Payments Exemption Act, where the Minister of Finance can waive the duty or tax or cess on anything. Some time ago, I received a call from some person in the Ministry of Finance telling me that I am a general secretary and that the general secretary of union get a car. I said, but I drive my wife one and that is still work. Because I can't really afford a car right now because somebody wrote off money. He didn't have any insurance or anything like that. So I drive my wife's car. It works very good. It's a bit inconvenient sometimes because up at meetings she gets wrong at work. But I am not compromised because the minister, you are not entitled to a duty-free car. You get a favor from the minister who writes off, who exempt those taxes for you. So that is why you would see the General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union driving a Mercedes Benz, and the General Secretary NUPW, they had what's it called, BMW.
BMW.
So when you see these things happening, and they get the perks, mind you, also, NUPW has a provision in the their setup that whatever salary increase they achieve for the public workers, they will get for themselves. The top 1% of the public service get allowances. they increased their allowances by 10%. But the people who really need it at the bottom and stuff, who don't get allowances, they got a 3% increase negotiated by the union. But the union now will get the same 10% because that is the long-standing tradition in the NUP. I work there, I know about it. And as a matter of fact, I used to negotiate for the staff when I was there. And then they decided, well, look, rather than negotiate this kind of stuff, because they took them 1 year and the staff get more money than the thing. You know. So, but see, I'm a negotiator. They asked me to negotiate for the staff. I negotiate for the staff. And the staff got a good set more money than they were supposed to have got it. And, well, so be it. The general secretary will get on his allowances 10%. But the workers will get 3% on their salary. He'll get 3% of his salary too. That is what I'm telling you. Like the fellow at the bottom get $123.85 increase over that period. But people like the top, like the prime minister, get 1,000 plus. And that's what they negotiated for. So
Yeah.
that is the kind of
Yeah.
friendly society thing that
Yeah,
they take care of each other. And then,
it is a form of corruption, actually. It is a form of corruption.
Lip service to representing members of the unions. They are not doing it. I complain all the time. They curse me. I don't mind. I get cursed by everybody. So if you don't curse me now, so what? It don't really bother me.
You are cursed so many times. So listen, we have 5 minutes left. And I know there is no way Miss McLean is going to be able to talk about the QH in 5 minutes. So you better make sure you can come back here on Friday, because somebody said, don't let Miss McLean forget to talk about. But can you take 2 minutes, Miss McLean, and say something
all right, let me
QH, yeah. And
let me just say
Kima.
quickly, and then we can come back and talk about it. And I wrote a note, so I'm going to read what I wrote so I can speed it up. I said, as Casro was speaking, I said recent statements asked Barbados this was by the PR officer, I'm not sure what his title is, asked Barbadians to refrain from coming to the A&E unless it is a life-threatening situation. They asked people to go to the polyclinics or to their private doctors. And the explanation given, one explanation was that there were about 50 persons at the A&E awaiting treatment. And my question always is why? Why is it that is, why is there a problem? And is it simply a case of the increased incidence of illness? And I would say no. I would say that there are a number of factors that are coming together, like chickens coming home to roost. While they don't publicize these things, I can tell you that there's been an exodus of some critical staff from the hospital. I know of the loss of a number of key specialist consultants, people in some cases working at the hospital for over 25 years and so on. I think also there have been some issues relating to management for quite some time. I know that the board of the hospital was not meeting frequently, if at all. And since the departure, I believe she has departed of the executive director, that's the title, Caswell?
Executive chairman.
Yeah, the executive chairman. Since she seems to, well, I understand she's working somewhere else, so I don't think she can be at the hospital and working somewhere else, if what I hear is true. But we have had ongoing problems at the hospital. Sadly, a lot of initiatives that were put in place were allowed to fall away. Some things were ignored. I mean, and so generally, I would say that we have had on the side of the hospital a number of things that have been allowed to fall back in terms of standards, in terms of how things are done. On the other hand, I want to express a concern about perhaps why we are seeing so many people. And I heard in a news item tonight, the same PR officer made the point that a number of patients are presenting with out of control conditions. and part of the problem is somebody saying that they're seeing a lot of late doctors on the phone, persons passing away. I would have to go back and look at that, but I think that there are a number of things that have happened, and part of it was that if you remember, um, a number of people were unable to attend regular clinics, and there wasn't, as far as I'm concerned, substitute. People were saying not to come to the hospital, but I would have expected that a lot of those clinics could have been reorganized and so on. So in other words, people's conditions have been allowed to get out of control, whether it is absence of being able to keep the schedule of appointments to see doctors. So people's hypertension is out of control, diabetes out of control, kidney disease. I will share this only today. I heard of somebody I know who was supposed to go to the hospital and be admitted and was told yesterday not to turn up. Unfortunately, person is ill and needs to probably be hospitalized. Um,
Mm.
and so what you're really seeing is a situation, and the question is, why are people's conditions out of control? There's a shortage of medication. Yes, there's a shortage globally, but there's also a problem, I think, where people are being forced to eat badly. So nutrition. So there's a shortage of staff in a lot of instances. There were some programs done to in terms of community services, and I believe that there's a lot more to do. And I didn't get permission from them to do this, but I will give a plug to the Hope Foundation, which deals with persons with lupus, sickle cell anemia, and rheumatoid arthritis. And what they did was to put a protocol in place where patients with lupus, and that lupus is I mean, that is an issue close to me, because the first case of lupus in New Barbados was one of my sisters. She's now late, but she had lupus for 40 something years. So that would give you an idea of how long ago. She died in 2019. But what they have done is to give their members a kit so that they can record certain vital things and share that information with the doctor who coordinates the program, so
Right.
that there's ongoing monitoring of of the patients, etc. So I am saying that a lot of systems need to be revisited, and that is one that can be adopted for certain kinds of conditions. But I think that to just come and tell people that a lot of people are presenting themselves, we have to dig in and ask why that is happening, and ask the
Exactly.
question, why is the hospital unable to respond in ways that you would hope that they can? But as you say, we can come back to the hospital.
Yeah, I think we need to. I mean, I was going through the list of things you had there, and we've been saying we was just that we wanted to get people that could talk about the hospital, a little in depth, to join our panelists. At least one more person, I think, would be good. But we are 10:01, and I have to allow Kimar to say something quick as well. And Kimar will have the last word tonight. Or let me go to Kimar first. Kimar, let me go to you first to make
Yeah.
sure that.
Well, thank you for giving me opportunity again to be on the show. Um, I want to go into something, but we can't know. So I'm just gonna brush over it
Friday,
quickly and then give
Friday.
my final.
Yes.
Right. Right. So all is not lost for me as it relates to Barbados. So I think the country has the infrastructure in place to become globally competitive in the right way. But we need visionary leaders, and we need people who have a care for country and not self. No learning in the pocket. Um, the country is very wealthy in terms of intellectual prowess. We have one of the best education systems in the world. But we need to redirect the thinking of policymakers uh, and get a focus that is more private income oriented on developing our private sector, not the traditional private sector, but an entrepreneurial class in Barbados that can help transmute some of this wealth that we have that is stuck in the banking system, getting 0.0 some interest. And it like even this bar money we get from MF, it should be more beneficial to the citizens as opposed to just sitting in the central bank. Economists like the lower has criticized government uh, of being the reason why most of the attractive deals and wealth, why it fails, why Barbados finds it hard to get projects off of the ground. He said that it relates to failures in the public sector and its administration. So if we could fix the administration of government, like what Caswell said and like what the Auditor General is suggesting, Barbados could move forward. Because we are saying that it is a management problem in government, and not that we don't have the money or we don't have the resources or we don't have the people, but it's just that the country and its public service is not being managed properly. So I said all that to say really that we have it all here in Barbados. We have it better than much of the developed countries in the world, but we need proper leadership with a vision to be able to bring all of that together and lead us into a new age of innovation and development. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you,
The,
thank
the,
you.
the, the, the,
And over to Mr. Franklin, and we close tonight. Go ahead, sir.
the landed eagle is making a comment on your screen. He's saying the country needs a PM who lives on the island. And I think that ties into what you were just saying, Kima, because
Yeah, yeah.
she pays a courtesy call to Barbados ever so often. And then to let people know that she's still alive, she holds a press conference and talk about nothing. Because she just wants to talk so that people know that she's here. I know that was not the point I wanted to make. I wanted to support Maxine with the thing with the hospital because it is last week or the week before, now I can't remember, because I received on my phone an email that was sent to the nurses at the polyclinic, the Winston Scott Polyclinic, the 24-hour, the 24-hour service, saying that it will not be, it will be a nurse's thing because they're gonna doctor. So the nurses were supposed to run the clinic. So how are you gonna tell the people go to the polyclinic and the polyclinic ain't gonna doctor? That I wanted to raise that, but there's so many things I want to raise that I don't get it. But thanks to Maxine, I remembered it. I got the email. As a matter of fact, I picked up the phone and I called the minister. I said what's going on here. I sent him the WhatsApp that I got with the email telling them that the doctors ain't turning up, and with them, or them ain't got none. Whichever it is, I do not know. But you cannot tell me go to the polyclinic. And when you get out there, the nurse will treat you because they're not a doctor. So something is awfully wrong. Maxine, you hitting the nail on the head. But I want them to respond to you and answer and say, what is the problem? Because you can't tell me that you have a poly. You can send me the polyclinic. I go there, so my gut's dropping out. You can tell me what I got to see a nurse. And before I finish, I want to tell the people who are watching us and want to tell your friends, come Saturday, September, is it 30th?
It's Saturday the 30th. Yes,
The
Saturday
30th?
the 30th. Yes.
We will be marching again. Come out in your numbers, bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring your children, and support this march, because this march and what we are complaining about is for you. It is for the people of Barbados. So come out, show your support, let the government know it is not just a handful. I know people are scared, and I tell you, people want to support us. A lady walking to the march on Saturday, give me a $50 and run out. Don't want to be seen. Plus, they had the drones in there, but we have to stand up.
Yeah.
We have to stand up. Let the government see it is not just Caswell and Marcia and one or two other miscreants. It is the people of Barbados that want these changes. So, thank you all. And I want to see you there on Saturday. I'll
Thank
remind you
you.
again on Friday, but please come out and show your support.
Yes, definitely. Friday, at 10:30, we do have a meeting at your union location there in Belleville on Fifth Avenue, right? Mr.
Number 6 Avenue, number 5 6 Avenue.
Right, gotta mix it up. Number 5, 6th Avenue. This is at the Unity Union, Workers Union. 10:30 for those persons who want to help with planning the next march. This is your march. You've paid for it already, remember? And it is your march. And so come out, and at 10:30, we're going to be there. God willing, I'll be down there. I don't know if Kimar is going to be able to make it down. And we are going to sit down and plan the march to make it. You know, we got some suggestions from people about including chants, etc. Somebody said to me, "This is the most polite." This Bajan who lived in the UK, she said, "This is the most polite march I have ever seen. I've never been to a protest march this polite. Where are the chants? Where are the this?" And you know, it was funny hearing her. But so she's asking for chants. People are writing chants, etc. So come out to the meeting, 10:30, number 5, 6th Avenue, Belleville, and give your input into your march. It's your protest, okay? So we're going to be down there for the meeting, and we see you again on Friday when the opposition will meet again on Friday. All right, on Friday at 7 o'clock. So we meet at 10:30 and Friday at 7. And we do hear your cry. Some people are asking for another, like a physical meeting, one of these shows. So I am thinking about that, about doing one at least one of our shows would be probably once a month, where we actually meet and have a live, right? Have a live show. All right. So let's see how that works out. Okay, God bless. We gone way over time tonight. It's 10:09. Bless you, and see you all on Friday.
Take care. I hope it is raining where you are. I'm listening to the
Good
rain
night,
as
good
we
night.
speak.
Yes, it's pouring.
It is, and it's cooling down the place, and
Yes,
that's
it is.
lovely.
It has been pretty dry, and so well. Have a good evening. I'll see and hear all of you. Take care.
Yes.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye, everybody, and thank you all for
Right.
joining.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye
God
bye.
bless you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye to everybody who joined from 6:30 this evening. God bless
Okay.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.